would like to call to order the April 17th, 2023 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners regular meeting. Welcome, everyone. It's good to have such a good crowd here tonight. We'd like to also welcome Owen Lutz, who is our youth representative from Hickory Ridge High School. Glad to have you with us tonight. If you would please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you would please join me in a moment of silence for our invocation tonight. Thank you. Okay, first up is the approval or corrections of the minutes. All of you have copies of those before you, and I think there are several on there. Do I hear any corrections to the minutes? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes as presented.
Motion to approve, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. You also have before you the agenda for tonight. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with changes on page 41?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to remove one item off of the consent agenda, and that would be item F6, the rules of procedure. If we could move that to G6 for new business.
All right, any other changes? Okay, if there are no other changes, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of moving an item from consent agenda to F9 to be G6 on new business.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. We move now to recognitions and presentations, and we are happy to have Byron Hagler from Active Living and Parks for an Older Americans Month proclamation. Or I see there's some debate. We'll accept who we would be delighted to have Londa or Myra in his place.
Thank you so much. May is Older Americans Month, and it's been established many years ago and goes on, and we try to have special activities and events going on during that month. And Myra Baumgardner is the chair of our Senior Center Advisory Council, and she is going to read the proclamation and then give you a few items that will be going on during May. You also have a sheet that has the items on your desk there. So it is my honor to introduce Myra Baumgardner. She has been a great asset to our commission, and we appreciate everything that she's done and is doing.
Good evening. Good to see everybody. I said this proclamation is so beautifully written that it almost makes me glad I'm old. Almost is the operative word there. I do encourage you, though, to listen carefully and with hope and confidence, if you, like me, fit into this group, with respect and appreciation, if you have special people in your life that fit into this group. Older Americans Month. Older Americans Month 2023. Whereas Cabarrus County includes a growing number of older Americans who contribute their time, wisdom, and experience to our community. And whereas communities benefit when people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds have the opportunity to participate and live independently. And whereas Cabarrus County Senior Centers Advisory Council recognizes the need to create a community that offers the services and supports older adults may need to make choices about how they age. And whereas Cabarrus County Senior Centers Advisory Council can work to build an even better community for our older residents by not limiting our thinking about aging, exploring and combating stereotypes, emphasizing the many positive aspects of aging, inspiring older adults to push past traditional boundaries, and embracing our community's diversity. Now, therefore, the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim May 2023 to be Older Americans Month. We urge every resident to celebrate our older citizens, help to create an inclusive society, and accept the challenge of flexible thinking around aging. You have the Older Americans Month, some activities in front of you. The first one is a ice cream turn-off. Who doesn't enjoy an afternoon of ice cream, right? So if you've got some hidden talents, please share with everyone to come out and enjoy. I might throw out that I'm the reigning champion of that turn-off. So if you would like to accept a challenge, I'll challenge you to a good ice cream recipe.
For making ice cream or eating ice cream? Which?
For making ice
okay.
cream. You have to make it before you can
Just
eat
checking.
it. Yes. But there are some papers out in the audience, so audience, please feel free to take them and share them with your neighbors. And everything's on the website. There's tons of stuff going on. And, aging is an active verb, so get out and move and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, Myra. Okay, commissioners. You have heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion that we adopt this proclamation as presented? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. It was my pleasure to be out for the opening games, for the opening of senior games over the last week or so, and I certainly commented then and will repeat it now that our group of seniors that are active in these programs in Cabarrus County are setting the example for people all over the community. They're up and active and moving and definitely to be admired. So thank you for all you do. Okay, we move now to Cooperative Extension, National Volunteer Proclamation, and we're happy to have Tracy LeCompte with that item.
Good evening, good evening. How fitting it is for Miss Myra to also have the part of this week to be National Volunteer Week as well as National Library Week, and how fitting it is for all of those things to mesh and how well we do that here in Cabarrus County. So I brought some friends with me, so if you can all come up here. But I specifically wanted to introduce one of our newest staff members. This is Jessica Klein. She is our support staff who focuses on volunteer management and our media specialist. So Jessica is here, and then we are showcasing a lot of our volunteers. And so I've brought some of our volunteers to help read the proclamation as well as invited our youth commission, as this is their last meeting for the year. And so they are also in the room. So we have lots of supporters here, but knowing that our senior centers, our libraries, and us at Cooperative Extension all rely heavily on volunteers, and we truly appreciate all that they do.
Hey, I just wanted to share with you that in 2022, Cabarrus County Cooperative Extension had 262 volunteers who together donated 24,980 hours of service. We are very grateful for each and every one of our volunteers that's a member of our team, and we are honored to get a chance to work with these volunteers who help to better the lives of Cabarrus County citizens. Now to Evan for our proclamation.
Whereas Cabarrus County has a strong history of improving lives, strengthening communities, and making our state a better place through volunteerism, and
whereas during National Volunteer Week, we celebrate the impact of volunteer service and come together to tackle community needs and foster a culture of civic engagement.
Whereas Cooperative Extension volunteers have dedicated countless hours as Master Gardener volunteers, Extension Community Association volunteers, or 4-H volunteers to bring life-enhancing opportunities to the individuals of Cabarrus County, helping them to thrive in their local communities. And
whereas National Volunteer Week was enacted in 1974 by President Richard Nixon to celebrate the spirit of volunteerism, urging all Americans to seek opportunities to provide service to their community. And
whereas, Cabarrus County residents are encouraged to learn about local volunteer opportunities by reaching out to your county extension office or other county or local organizations. And
whereas National Volunteer Week should serve as a catalyst for residents to serve our county today. To commit to volunteer by signing up now through Cooperative Extension in a local school, government department, nonprofit, or other option in your community. To promote volunteerism in our families and communities through an invitation to serve together. And to be all in for Cabarrus County when it is needed most.
Now, therefore, I, Stephen Norris, Chairman of the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim April 16th through 22nd, 2023 as National Volunteer Week in Cabarrus County and commend its observance to all citizens.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion that we adopt it as presented?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That passes unanimously, and we certainly depend heavily on our volunteers, and the Extension Service does a wonderful job in coordinating a lot of volunteers. I look forward, I'm sorry I missed the breakfast this year where you presented the big check with all the volunteer hours, but we appreciate that you recognize all those volunteers, and we're happy to participate in that. Okay. Okay, now from EMS, Cabarrus County Emergency Services Week, and we're happy to have Jimmy Lentz to start that presentation.
Good evening, and thank you for the annual opportunity to come before you and read the EMS Week proclamation. Whereas emergency medical service is a vital public service, and whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas emergency medical services teams consist of emergency physicians, emergency nurses, emergency medical technicians, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others, and whereas the members of emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills, and whereas Americans benefit daily from the knowledge and skills of these highly trained individuals, and whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of emergency medical service providers by designating Emergency Medical Service Week, and now, therefore, it be resolved that the Board of Cabarrus County Commissioners, in recognition of this event, do hereby proclaim the week of May 21st through May 27th, 2023, as Cabarrus County Emergency Medical Services Week.
Thank you. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion that we adopt it as presented? Okay, we have a motion and several seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. And thank you for all you do. You've heard me say it a number of times before. These are the last guys you want to see pull up in your driveway. But if you call them, you're mighty glad when you do see them. So we appreciate all you do. Okay, now from human, yes. Well-deserved applause. And so we move now from human resources, recognition of a retirement, and we'll call on Sheriff Shaw to lead that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Tonight I have the privilege of being here to honor Chief Deputy James Bailey. James has served with me as my Chief Deputy for over 4 years, and he has reached the finish line. He has a distinguished career of over 28 years of service and will be retiring later this month. To give you a recap of his career, he began that career in March of 1995 when he was selected as a deputy by then Sheriff Robert Kennedy. He was assigned to the detention center and stayed in the detention center until 1997, when he was then reassigned to the patrol division. In October of 2002, Chief Deputy Bailey was promoted to the rank of sergeant by Sheriff Brad Riley. And in 2006, he was promoted to the rank of lieutenant under Sheriff Riley. And then in 2018, I reached out and tapped him on the shoulder and asked him to serve as my chief deputy. He brings so much to the table. His experience, his years spent out on patrol, over 25 years patrolling the roads of this county and serving the citizens. So it's very admirable. James has received many awards during his career, 2 of which were the Kevin Pugh Veteran Officer of the Year Award in 2008, and also the Robert J. Urey Award in 2022. James also has a Bachelor of Science degree from Western Carolina University in criminal justice, and he also got his master's degree in the administration of criminal justice from East Carolina University. It's bittersweet for me. I'm tickled to see anyone get to the finish line, but I hate to see James go. He's always been there, been a support, and always wanting to do the right things for the citizens of this county. So I thank him for his service. His wife, Anna, is with us tonight as well, and I thank her for her dedication and support of James, because no one gets through a law enforcement career without strong support from their family. And so we appreciate her just as much. So I will turn it over to James and let him make a couple of quick remarks.
Just real quick, they don't make a book to do this job. Lauren, been fantastic. Mike, Rodney, Kyle, everybody's been just great. It's bittersweet, but I'm happy. I really am happy. But, when you hear yourself being talked about, it's just strange for me. I'm normally not in this situation. So, but again, I wanted to thank some of the county staff, because they've really made this job so much easier. Again, Lauren, good God. I have stretched every deadline she's ever set for me. Tom Nunn, Teresa Claire, fantastic folks. Our HR, fantastic. ITS, fantastic. Because we're relying upon everybody in the county to do our job. So when you think about public safety, you think about law enforcement, right? But it's everybody that's doing their job to help us function, right? So again, just thankful to get to the end, and very happy. So thank you.
Proud county, thank you for your service. I just can't help but wonder, as I do these presentations every month, and for retirees just like yourself, 28 years, I just asked myself, who's gonna fill their shoes?
We got a good one.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, James, I for one gonna miss you.
I appreciate it.
And I tell you, I appreciate the friendship that we've had over the last few years.
Thank you.
And I wish you the absolute best in your retirement.
Well, thank you.
And come around and see us sometime.
I'll be around. I'll be around. The one thing I will say too is thanks to this board. They've been very supportive. Our previous boards have been great. But continue again to support your public safety officials. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, James, and we really appreciate everything that you've done for Cabarrus County. I don't like that term finish line because I don't think you're finished yet. So I think there are more good things to come, but certainly wish you well and hope you enjoy your retirement and you just about made all of us cry. So next up, we have a proclamation for National Library Week, and we're happy to have Melanie Hollis with us from our library director.
Good evening, and on behalf of the Library Board of Trustees and the library staff, thank you for your time this evening. Most people know about the wealth of stories available at the library, from picture books and large print to audiobooks and ebooks. But there's so much more to the story of libraries. And if you haven't checked out the Cabarrus County Library lately, you're missing the full story. And so stop by and visit to celebrate with us during National Library Week, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to see what we are getting up to. So the National Library Week 2023 proclamation. Whereas libraries provide the opportunity for everyone to pursue their passions and engage in lifelong learning, allowing them to live their best life. And whereas libraries have long served as trusted institutions for all members of the community, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. And whereas libraries strive to develop and maintain programs and collections that are as diverse as the populations they serve and ensure equality of access for all. And whereas libraries adapt to the ever-changing needs of their communities, continually expanding their collections, services, and partnerships. And whereas libraries play a critical role in the economic vitality of communities by providing internet and technology access, literacy skills, and support for job seekers, small businesses, and entrepreneurs. And whereas libraries are accessible and inclusive places that promote a sense of local connection, advancing understanding, civic engagement, and shared community goals. And whereas libraries are cornerstones of democracy, promoting the free exchange of information and ideas for all. And whereas libraries, librarians, and library workers are joining library supporters and advocates across the nation to celebrate National Library Week. And now therefore be it resolved that we, Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners, proclaim National Library Week, April 23rd through 29, 2023. During this week, we encourage all residents to visit the library to explore the wealth of resources available. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Okay, Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion that we adopt it as presented?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And thank you for everything that you do for the libraries. I think that they become more popular every day. It's been my privilege to serve on the Library Board of Trustees since 2012, and I think I served a couple terms prior to being a commissioner. So it has always been a passion of mine, and I think they become more relevant every day with all the new things that you offer that I wish we had the entire meeting to talk about all the online opportunities as well as all the things that are available in the library. But there is truly a wealth of information there, and we appreciate what you do. Okay, we move now to informal, thank you, yes. We move now to informal public comments. I think we've got 9 or 10 here. I wanted to very quickly review our rules regarding public comments. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. The board has adopted a public participation policy that provides reasonable rules on how the public have their voices heard by their leaders. The clerk has copies of the policy that you can review. Under the policy, the board welcomes all viewpoints. However, the board asks that all speakers follow some basic common sense guidelines to make sure they all feel welcome and that the board can perform its important work. Here are a few key points. Number 1, speakers must be respectful and observe proper decorum in their statements by refraining from vulgarity, obscenities, profanity, speaking in a tone or manner that threatens disruption or other like breaches of respect. Number 2, speakers may not personally attack board members, county employees, or members of the public. Speakers are free to discuss substantive concerns of public interest regarding a public official's conduct or qualifications, but irrelevant insults and attacks are not allowed. Speakers may not disclose personally identifiable information about minors, such as names, birthdays, addresses, or pictures, without permission from a minor's parent or legal guardian. Speakers must register with the clerk by filling out a yellow card before speaking. Speakers have 3 minutes to speak. My job is to make sure that the meeting is organized, focused, and moving with respect and dignity. The buzzer will sound when your 3 minutes are up, and we ask that you finish your sentence and move away from the podium. If you continue to speak, I will ask you to stop. If you fail to move away from the podium, I will ask law enforcement to remove you from the chambers. And we have, as I said, quite a few speakers tonight, so I will take these in the order that they were handed to me. And the first one, I'm having a little trouble. I think this is Roland Jordan.
It's me.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner. As I was sitting there, my mind was thinking, Jesus was outnumbered when he was crucified, but that don't matter to me, praise God. I come to you requesting a proclamation from Mr. Ronald Long, who was in prison 44 years accused of raping a white woman. I think he deserved that. He's a classmate of mine, praise God. And I ask y'all to touch your hearts and mind on that, praise God. And I still ask you if you could do what you can for Bible's culture. Even ask our white students to come and all races to come. That's what it's all about, equal. So sometimes we have to prove we're just going to be that. I get a little racist myself, but I pray about it because I'm flush. I ain't no better than nobody else, but I believe in doing God well. I'm not qualified to do it, but I do it for him. But our kids, praise God, they need respect. I got a problem when parents cussing their kids out, disrespect. I got a problem when gay people not doing their kids like they're supposed to be. I know Jesus got a problem with it too, praise God. Even though they try to accuse me of kids, praise God. But Jesus said they're going to lie on you, do all things about it, but they ain't going to stop me. I'm going to do what God's saying to the end. And I think you're doing a good job on the Cabarrus County, praise God. My life been brought back a couple of times, praise God. I was in the hand of Jesus. That's when I stand up and respect the people, the proclamation for all people. And I thank for the citizens of Cabarrus County. And I'm still looking for a street in Harrisburg, Midland, and Mount Pleasant for Martin Luther King. So my brothers and sisters, let's get on board and do right for the Lord. God bless you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gene Chandler.
My name is
You do need the microphone over here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I just have a few words that I wanted to say, and Mr. Pittman was supposed to go before me. I've observed for several years that this board, when they vote, it's normally a 3-2 vote on almost everything. This bill that's coming up, HB Bill 453, is only a ploy to keep this power. 2 of the commissioners were not even aware of the bill proposal until they received phone calls. With any public job, especially an elected one, if you're not able to fulfill that position, you resign or you retire. You certainly do not choose your replacement. If someone votes by phone or computer, how can you be absolutely sure that is the right person or someone voted in their place? It's my understanding that this has happened before in the past. This bill would be unfair to the voters who, in good faith, put all of you in office and expect everything to be fair and honest and upfront. You all always promise to put the voters first and not power status. One important thing I would like to leave with you is 2024 will bring another election, and all of these things will be remembered. God bless America, and God bless Cabarrus County.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jim Quick.
Good evening, board members. I'm here to voice my concerns, like Jean, on the rule changes this body will take up tonight. Why should 5 commissioners sitting here before us tonight be the only county commissioners in the entire state that will be allowed to participate and vote remotely if House Bill 453 and these rule changes are passed tonight? Let's take, for example, the opportunity that I have to stand before you during this public meeting. I have the opportunity to express concerns, approval for policy positions, budgets, tax incentives, and ordinances that you might pass. I have the opportunity to look at you eye in eye and have engagement and discussion. I'm a compassionate man and have empathy and understanding for lots of experiences that employees may have. I've led teams in the private sector, and after all, that's why we have family leave, absentees, and corporations are required to figure out a way to move forward if someone is not able to sit in that role and fulfill their obligations. I believe our commissioners should be required to show up, just like every other elected official in Cabarrus County. That's what we elected them to do. We expect you to sit here at the dais, have meaningful discussion and debate, and together work to make this county better. Technology thankfully allowed all of us during the pandemic to navigate those difficult changes, but thank goodness the pandemic is over. Now more than ever, we can all appreciate the opportunity to stand here and engage face to face. Remote opportunities to connect to this meeting, you would miss some of the great things that I've observed. The youth standing here and smiling and talking back and forth. Law enforcement looking admiredly on Chief Deputy and his accomplishments. You don't get that when you look on the Zoom meeting, because I've watched at home. And so I really encourage each of you to step up and fulfill your roles. And I wonder, if someone is unable to be here and they connect remotely, who is going to fulfill all the obligations that this board has to the community? You all have liaison positions, other boards, other opportunities outside of this dais that you all reach out to the community. Who is going to do that if a member is not able to join on a regular basis? We send our delegates from here to Raleigh to participate and represent all of us. None of them have the choice to do it remotely. All of them must go and sit on the floor of the General Assembly. If they don't go, we don't have representation in Cabarrus County. And so I'm asking each of you to do the same when you consider this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Melanie Freeman.
Good evening, Commissioners. I would like to speak to you tonight about a matter of integrity.
whether it be rule or law or an office or an individual. I researched what others had to say, and they say integrity is acting with honesty, fairness, and decency, free of corruption and hypocrisy, regardless of circumstances or consequences. It operates on courage and is the critical connection between ethics and morals. Tonight, you are sitting in a beautiful multi-million-dollar facility. It was provided by the people to conduct the people's business. It was provided by the people to meet you, speak to you, have access to you, and hold you accountable. None of you were elected to conduct the people's business via Zoom, from your car, from your home, while traveling, on vacation, or any other number of scenarios. Whereas technology has added convenience to our lives, it has also served to distance people from one another and to act as a barrier, insulating people from accountability. Being a county commissioner is not a remote job. It is an in-person job. Things will happen beyond human control, but there's no business that cannot wait or compassionate leave that cannot be granted in the case of an emergency. But in the case of someone who is unable to fulfill the duties of the job, one of which is to show up in person, one who may be permanently incapacitated or transferred for their job, then they should tender their resignation and a replacement be found. This is why we have the 25th Amendment. Another point of integrity is the handling of this rule change. You made no attempt to inform the people who you work for, how you intended to change how their business would be conducted. You, in fact, did everything to keep it quiet. You released the information at the end of the biggest vacation week of the year and on the weekend, and to complete the trifecta, you buried it on the consent agenda. How is this not a violation of our trust in you as elected officials? The rule change, which you have now separated from the consent agenda, should provide time for a public hearing. You are making a radical change for how business can be conducted, and the people have a right to know, to approve or not approve such action. This is also known as transparency. It requires courage to act with integrity, regardless of circumstances or consequences. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is David Hampton.
Good evening. I just want to address some concerns that I've had that have been brought out. Some of the things that happened prior to the primary with the likes in which I've never seen. There was a plan devised by commissioners that was to immediately remove the county manager, other members of administration, county legal, along with some of the planning and zoning departments. Interestingly enough, the replacement county manager had reportedly already been chosen and was coming out of Midland. I wonder who else was promised positions if the board, in fact, had obtained a majority vote. I hate to think how many department heads would have lost and would have left and would have basically crippled the county. I know there's been a lot of talk about tax incentives and tax cuts, and I would like to know, when that happens, what exactly are we losing when there's tax cuts? What are we going to see if there's tax cuts? Because I know there's some on the board that do not believe in tax incentives, and I think this needs to be addressed and to the point of what we're actually going to lose or what we're going to actually gain. I also know when we start talking about transparency that there was a lot of meetings held prior to the election that were held in garages, that were held in backyard cookouts, when this plan was devised to get rid of members of administration and members of the county. And I think that this is something that needs to be addressed. One of the things that I would like to say is I'm happy
and proud to say that Commissioner Wortman has stood up to this and decided that he was going to do what was right and decided to do not what was necessarily the easy decision, but what was the right decision. In closing, I just want to say Cabarrus County has some very talented employees at all levels. Let's keep it that way and not lose this level of performance of service due to a power struggle, dirty politics. Cabarrus County employee or Cabarrus County citizens deserve better. And I think transparency is very, very important. And I think some of the backstabbing that's happened between commissioners needs to stop. And I think it needs to quit being a 3-2 vote. And I think it needs to be a vote that is honestly done fairly to where it can be a 4-1 vote, a 5-0 vote. But it doesn't seem to happen that way. It seems to be a 3-2 vote on whatever it is. And I think that that needs to stop. The citizens deserve better, and the dirty politics and the behind closed door politics needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Larry Pittman.
Good evening. I'm Larry Pittman. Live out on Roberta Road, Southwest. Some of y'all might still consider me a newcomer, but I've actually been a citizen of Cabarrus County for over 32 years now. And as you know, I served in the State House, served this county for over 11 years. And back during this pandemic thing that was going on, Tim Moore allowed members of the State House to vote by proxy, which is, about the same thing as a remote vote. They would call in and talk to a leader in the caucus, their caucus, and have them announce their vote. I spoke out very vocally against this and stayed after Tim Moore the whole time to stop it until he finally did. He didn't stop it because I said so, but at a certain point he finally quit it. And I refused to be a part of that. Fortunately, I wasn't sick and didn't have to be out, but I would not have done it if I had been. I don't believe in votes being taken by people who are not present to vote. The people have a right to expect to be able to face their representatives in person at any meeting. I understand about, going into executive session and all that. I'm not talking about that, but a regular public meeting, the people have a right to expect their representatives to be there to face them. So I would ask that this idea of House Bill 453 be dropped. In fact, I have been in communication with Representative Baker about it, and I haven't gotten around to asking her yet, but I plan to ask her to drop the bill, to withdraw it. And I will be in Raleigh, just so you know, next Tuesday when it's heard in committee to speak against it there. Also, in connection with that, it looks to me, or I think some other people probably see it that way, that with the rules changes that you're proposing that's in the consent agenda tonight, that looks like a way of saying, well, if it doesn't get through the legislature, we'll just do it ourselves and just work around that. Then why send it to the legislature if you're going to do that, So in connection with that, I would ask y'all to remove number 6 out of the consent agenda and not vote on that tonight. And I just hope you'll understand that since I've kind of held myself to a standard. I told Tammy, when she was my legislative assistant in Raleigh, I didn't care if it was somebody who agreed with me or somebody who hated my guts. Anybody who wanted to come to my office and speak to me was to be let in and have a chance to talk to me. And if I had not held myself to that standard, maybe I wouldn't have the right to ask y'all to hold yourselves to the same standard. But I did, and I do, and I hope you'll drop this idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rich Wise.
Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Rich Wise. I'm a citizen and a taxpayer of Cabarrus County. I'm also a Midland Town Councilman. There was a proposal, a change made to the rules of procedure is illegal that was proposed. A commissioner cannot vote on his own replacement. State law is clear that that if a vacancy occurs on the Board of Commissioners, only the remaining members can vote on that replacement. State Bill 153A, 27, vacancies of a board member, and a vacancy occurs on the Board of Commissioners, the remaining members of the board shall appoint a qualified person to fill the vacancy. The key term is remaining members. If you are stepping down from your position and creating a vacancy, you cannot be one of the remaining members. When you adopt changes to the rules and procedures that are illegal, those changes are null and void, and any action taken using that language is null and void. I believe this is proof that Chairman Morris will disregard the state law when it is personal benefit. We all know how this change would benefit him. I would urge the commissioners and the staff not to follow his path. Willingly failing to discharge your duties as a county commissioner is a prime punishment by removal from office. Failing to follow the state law when it comes to filing a vacancy would fall under willingly failing to discharge your duties as a county commissioner. Another part of that state law, 14-230, is an office and shall be punished by removal therefrom under the statement of the court as a part of punishment for the offense. So you're asking all you members, whether you're stepping down or not, to vote for a new member coming in. That's really illegal. And that's our state law, and I can't see how you're going to change that without people here fighting for it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jerry Anderson.
First of all, I'm appalled about all the rules that you have for 3 minutes up here. I fought for freedom of speech, and we have our 3 minutes up here to talk, and all those rules you read off is not free speech. We ought to have free speech up here. Ever since the scandal of y'all taking my daughter, y'all have cut down our free speech and put rules on it. If you listen to yourself later on, all the rules you put on free speech is not free speech no more. Too much government overrule and run. Anyway, the scandal was I moved here 15 years ago and I went to get help from my adult daughter. Y'all screened her wrong, went after my granddaughter, and on a Saturday in April, y'all come with the police and took her out of my house, never to be seen again. I believe she's at risk. And county manager, I won't call no names, I might get carried out of here, locked his door. I just heard Mr. Pittman say, anybody that comes to my office should get answers. All I'm wanting is answers. Anyway, in my little book, people are leaving. County attorney is gone. I want to know why. I got an answer. One of the other county attorneys sent me a nice letter, just like that, gave me an answer. And he said, I can tell you that his leaving has nothing to do with your daughter. Well, I disagree. I don't know how you know that. His conscience might be he didn't want to work for this scandal-ridden community. I moved here to live in this nice community, and now it's scandal. I hear people talking. Y'all doing things that we don't believe in and taking a child. When I went to get help for an adult child, I believe he left because he didn't want to work here no more. I believe he's gone. I believe he didn't want to work here no more. I think Jessica Bridges, you told me they gave, when they investigated my daughter early March, they said that she could stay at my house. And then I called to talk to Jessica Bridges. They said, come on over here. They lied to me. This is in April. They lied to me. The two social workers I called monsters. And I got over there, and they started another investigation. And April 9th, my daughter was gone. Is that social services trying to help a family, keep them together that fast? And I've yet to get answers. And your new guy, Evan, He called me, he says, man, what can I do to help you? I said, get me my transcript of me coming over there in the intake. I've yet to see it.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jeter Anderson.
Jeter Anderson. A lot of people coming up here talking about integrity. Well, I see one person with no integrity right now. He wouldn't be up here today if he had integrity. He would have done step down. Our county manager is not a county manager. He's just a budgeter only. He's only budgeting for himself. We got problems. We got a veteran that wants answers. He's a Biden citizen. He's a good citizen. He don't have to be a good citizen, but he chooses to be a good citizen in your county. And you don't want to answer his questions. You ruin his family. And you took this little child. You know, I don't know if this is a hate crime or a transgender attack on a Christian military family, but we need some answers. This child needs some answers. Was this a transgender attack? Was this a transgender attack that you're covering up, Downs? Cook, your investigation, you did the court proceedings. Everything come out okay. How did a mentally ill individual that had to represent themselves in court 3 times come out okay? I think that investigation is wrong. I think your letter that you sent to my home is wrong. Don't send no more letters to my home. Downs, I don't see who loves you. Where's your family at? I met them on the corner, but where they at up here? Shouldn't somebody be up here supporting you? I don't think no one loves you. Maybe I love you. Maybe this feels like an attack on you. It's not. I'm just trying to steer you in the right direction. You had 2 social workers, only 2, that loved this child. And if they didn't screen her wrong, everybody else's job would have been right. Now his investigation's wrong. Goldberg's investigation's wrong. He's not here. People are leaving, and it could be these 2 social workers' fault. I don't know. There's no answers. There's no answers, and this child may be at risk. I want y'all to understand a child may be at risk. And God bless this county.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Ray Helms.
Commissioners, Commissioner Shue, I just want to say to you, I know a lot of this was probably directed in your behalf, but I hope that God gives you 40 years and you get to serve them all as a county commissioner. That's my prayer. Also, I want to say, I heard that rules were being changed on the spot. Well, if you attended the GOP convention, you'd have saw a circus of that. So I think it's just a bunch of hypocrisy here tonight. Now, let me get to where I come for. There's a few county employees that when I attend the workshop meetings, I pay a lot of attention to people's behavior, their answers, their presentations. And it tells me a lot about who they are and how good they are at their job. And we need people that are assets to the county and not a liability. I don't want to slight anyone, by no means. This county's full of good people, but there's 3 I want to mention tonight. Rodney Harris, Kyle Bilford, and Kelly Sifford. Those 3, when I watch them, they give direct, specific answers to the things that you ask them. And I think it makes your job a lot easier in the decision process that you have to make. Also, I pay careful attention to what y'all are looking for and what they give you. So a lot of it is already presented. It cuts out a lot of questions, I believe. So I think these people deserve a lot of recognition. I hope they never leave the county. And if they are fortunate enough to retire, I hope it's at age 80 when they get to do so. So I'm just very appreciative when I see people that are good at what they do, and they're very pointed at their information that they give, and they don't ramble on all night long trying to make it sound good. They just give exact things that need to be given. So I just wanted to recognize them tonight and say that they do a very good job, in my opinion. I don't know what all they do, but what I see them doing is very good. And I just wanted to recognize that tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes all of the yellow cards that we have for informal public comments tonight. So we will move now to the consent agenda. All of the items on our consent agenda are ones that have been discussed at length at our work session 2 weeks ago. Tonight we have 18 items on that consent agenda. So Commissioners, do I hear a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
It's worth noting to the viewing audience that number 6 was removed from the consent agenda. That we did that whenever we set the agenda at the very first thing. So I just wanted to clarify that. But with that being said, I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the changes.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make one quick comment about the item that we're moving over from the consent agenda. We've discussed this at least 2 times already. We're not trying to hide anything. And it seems like there's a group of people that wants to make it sound like we're trying to hide something while we're not being transparent, when that's not the case at all. We had our annual retreat out at the event, wasn't it at the event center just recently, and we had a long discussion about that, kicked it around quite a bit, as a matter of fact, and then we discussed it again at our work session 2 weeks ago. So, I mean, I just want you to know there's so much misinformation out there. And, you know, it's very unfair to this group of commissioners. And even for myself, let me tell you this. I could not even believe that I heard this week. Most of you know my health issues. You already know that I'm a heart transplant recipient and a kidney transplant recipient. And you know that I'm in kidney failure. Yeah. But I'm very stable. My doctors tell me that I'm stable. I'm doing good. When I asked them about running for re-election last year, all of my doctors at Duke, here, and everywhere said, Lynn, run again. Run 2 more times. You're in good enough health to do it. So I did. I felt like I did. But I heard just this week a person call me and told me, said, Lynn, I'm just calling to check on you. Are you feeling it all right? Yeah, I'm feeling just fine. Well, I heard that you were severely ill and you were on your deathbed. Now, that's the kind of stuff that goes on out there with a certain group of people, folks. It's very unfair. This is a very taxing job. It's getting harder. Do you know why it's getting harder? Because we got 235,000 people in Cabarrus County now, whereas years ago, 75, 80, 100,000 people. Well, you got twice the people, you got twice the problems, and all of that. And so I just want you to know that one of the goals of this board, Mr. Chairman, you'll vouch for this, is transparency. We talk about it all the time. We want to make sure the public knows. That's why we have the website, and that's why we put things on there to inform the public, to give them the information that's out there. We're not hiding anything from anybody. And I wanted to say that because it just is appalling to me that you got a certain group of people that's all the time trying to stir the pot, to cause problems. And I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to belabor the time no more because we got a pretty good bit to do yet. But I just wanted to speak that for whatever it's worth.
I would like to clarify something. You know, I was at the retreat as well. And from my recollection, I'm not sure if you can remember, there was very little discussion about this at the retreat. It was mentioned, it was brought to us, but there was not a lengthy discussion. I was sitting in that room just like everybody else in here. But I know we're going to get into it later, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion?
Lauren, do we have the video of that retreat available to be able to play when we get to the discussion? And that way, everybody in this room can see exactly how much conversation we had about it.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? If not, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. And we move now to new business. First up is an economic development investment for Coleman Industrial Gases LLC, which we have referred to as Project Parade. And Samantha Grass from the Economic Development Corporation is here to answer any questions we might have and tell us a little
Absolutely.
in advance.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present the project this evening. Project Parade, Coleman Industrial Gases LLC, is considering the location of their operation at the Midland Logistics Park at 375 NC Highway 2427 in Midland. They currently have a dry ice manufacturing plant located in Concord that will still remain there at the current location. The second location would allow them to expand their dry ice manufacturing operation and also utilize a rail-served site with ACWR, Aberdeen, Carolina, and Western, to operate a bulk liquid CO2 distribution terminal. They plan to build their corporate headquarters at this location as well. This high-demand CO2 would serve food and beverage grade facilities, pharmaceutical manufacturers, along with hundreds of other businesses in need of dry ice and CO2. The dry ice facility will provide instant solutions in cases of hospital emergencies, government facilities, FEMA emergencies and disasters, and others. They plan to create 25 new jobs with average wages exceeding our current county average wage. Their projected investment in real and personal property in the first 3 years is estimated to be around $63 million. Some of the items that don't qualify as program assets eligible for a grant include the land lease, rail cars, tractors, and tankers, and delivery vehicles. So we did remove the estimates for that. So the estimated investment we used to generate the grant calculation is $22,275,900. The Cabarrus County grant analysis is based on the estimated $2.3 million investment. Coleman Industrial Gases is asking for your consideration of a 3-year, 85% economic development grant on their real and personal property investment. The estimated grant amount is $347,953. The net revenue to the county during that grant term is $61,000. And we are happy to answer any questions you have. And we have several representatives tonight. Mike and Nisha, and also Dalton Coleman are here as well.
Great, thank you. Commissioners, do you have questions for Samantha on this project? But one question I would ask you, the original figure that you mentioned was $63 million, and you outlined the things that you deducted,
Yes.
the various assets. Are those assets that would be here in Cabarrus County that they would be paying property tax on?
Some of the items are
Of them are mobile.
transitory.
Yeah,
So they're excluded, like the rail cars. A lot of that, so the assessed tax value will probably be much greater than that $22 million number that I gave. I mean, they're going to be investing a whole lot more than that number. But as far as taxable investment that we're talking about for the grant is just on that $22 million.
right. Do you consider this a competitive project? Are there other sites in other counties that
Sure.
they have investigated?
We do. We know they did explore at least one other site in the region. This, of course, is a preferred site, being in Midland, being in Cabarrus County, since they already have a presence here in Concord. But they did look at least one other site in the Charlotte region.
Great. Anybody else have questions for Samantha?
Is this the first tax incentive offered inside the town limits of Midland?
Yes, I believe so.
Go ahead, Chris. One of the things that I like about this particular project is this is a homegrown company, and we're proud of homegrown companies that move up, and the way I see it, where we can help, we need to. And so, you know, I'm very pleased to support this incentive. And thank you guys for being here tonight, and I'm real happy for you.
Is the town of Midland, are they given a incentive for this project?
They are not.
Okay, and why is that?
I'm going to ask Paige to assist with that.
I never like to speak on behalf of an elected body, of course, as you all know, but the feedback that we got from Midland staff was due to the low tax rate in Midland. They didn't feel that it would be necessary to offer an incentive for this
Okay.
project.
And now what's the timeline on this? The company, did they reach out to you and ask about the process? Did you reach out with them and assist in this? Could you give me some background on that?
So our office has been engaged with this company off and on for a couple of years. They're an existing business, so we have a relationship with them. And just through those discussions, learned that they had this opportunity to expand their business. And so we went from there, helped them with the property search, and then they asked if there would be any local incentive support. So that's why we brought it to you all.
So you reached out to them, is that?
I don't remember initially how we were introduced to you.
Honestly, I think it was to help with the real estate search.
Yeah.
Mike had reached out. He was needing to expand. He needed a rail serve site. There's very few of those. So our office put him in touch with Aberdeen, Carolina. So we helped make that connection, and they kind of took that conversation from there.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here tonight. It's excellent that, local grown company, it's great to see expansion in that, and I wholeheartedly support, local businesses. However, with this particular project, I feel like the site is specific in exactly what you're looking for, and I feel that, my gut feeling would be that you're going to, open in that location regardless of the tax break or not. I understand that you have secured enough funding, enough capital that this probably would not be a determining factor in your decision. But like I said, thank you for being here. In my opinion, whenever I see the grant amount of 340, something thousand, I feel like that's tax revenue that could be used for our sheriff's department, for our EMS. This is lost revenues to our county, and I just have a problem with that. But like I said, thank you again for being here.
Okay, any other questions for Paige or Samantha? If not, we do need to have a public hearing on this matter, and I will call the public hearing to order and invite anyone that would like to speak regarding this project to the podium. And if the Colemans would like to speak, we would welcome the opportunity to hear from you.
Larry Pittman again. I'll just say that when I was in the legislature, a lot of these things came up there, and I always voted no, because taxpayer funding should not go to business, period.
We certainly appreciate everybody's time tonight. Thank you for being here, and thank you for allowing me to come up here and talk just a brief second. And I certainly appreciate your opinion on that, Mr. Meisner. Thank you. The thing is on this is, being a small, veteran-owned small business, we have paid our dues of not ask the Cabarrus County for anything in the past. We employ several people that are veterans. We do supply a lot of people with jobs now, and we've provided them with, and their family with jobs, strong jobs, and kept them busy through the pandemic, keeping our doors open to supply immediate ice for a lot of the vaccines and other things that went on during that period. But for us to invest $65 million into this county, that's a $347,000 tax incentive over 3 years. Doesn't seem like a whole lot for what I'm going to be bringing in to this county as far as jobs. as Samantha said, these are higher paying jobs. This is not just a factory worker type deal. These are very highly experienced jobs that these people will have. These are analytical laboratory that will have to go in, that all this CO2 will have to be tested and so forth. So, you know, we've already written a lot of contracts already and pre-sold a lot of this product, which will embrace and bring more business here. Preparing our county in case, what she said, to give our county some initiative in case something does happen. We have a large facility out there to provide dry ice for the county in cases of emergencies and stuff like that. So, but we appreciate anything your opinion on all this, and thank you so much for having us tonight. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank the gentleman for choosing Cabarrus County. And then I want to thank him too for choosing Midland, because all I hear constantly is they've been neglected, been treated like a redheaded stepchild, and here's an opportunity for the commissioners to reach out and support a company that wants to do that. I hope you'll make the right decision. I know probably 3 of you will, but I would like to see it, as the other gentleman said, unanimous, especially for Midland. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. Commissioners, what would be your pleasure on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve an economic development agreement, 3 years, 85%, between Coleman Industrial Gases, LLC, and Cabarrus County, and to authorize the county manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the board, subject to review or revision by the county attorney.
I'll second that motion.
Okay.
Thank you for choosing Cabarrus County.
Yes. We have a motion and a second. I'll open up the floor for any further discussion. Well, I too would like to say thank you for choosing Cabarrus County. When we have a local business that has been successful and chooses to expand in Cabarrus County, we are all thankful for that, to bring 25 new jobs to the community, paying substantially above the county average wage, provides opportunities not only for our young people in the community, but for existing citizens to improve themselves and stay at home, to have a site that works for that. We're very fortunate for that, and we're thankful for that industry for providing that site that gives you that rail siding. I asked a question earlier about if there were competitive sites, and the answer that I got was yes. I had asked that question previously as we were considering this, and I was told that there were several other suitable sites with rail siding that would be available in other areas, other counties. So I'm glad that you have chosen Cabarrus County, and we appreciate that. We talk about, when we talk about our Economic Development Corporation, and I think they do a spectacular job for the citizens in this county, but one of the things that we've talked about for years is, how do we help our existing businesses? We can provide incentives, we can do things to try to attract new businesses, which we are very thankful for that. I mean, projects like Red Bull and Eli Lilly they're bringing tremendous investment to our community and providing jobs for construction workers and other folks for a number of years before they provide permanent employment, and they're already employing folks out there. So we have those opportunities. When we have a chance to do something for one of our local businesses and to help them prosper and expand. It's just a win-win for everyone. It's a win for our tax base, it's a win for our municipalities, a win for the people that secure those jobs, and it's a win for the other businesses that you serve in our community with your products. So I'm very excited to support this project and look forward to having an opportunity to attend your ribbon cutting. I hope that comes soon. And so are there any other discussion, any other comments? If not, we'll move to a vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Okay, that motion, if you're in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. I did not get a count. Okay, if you're opposed to the motion, okay, that's 3-2, and that motion passes. Thank you and welcome. Okay, we move now to item 2, which is another economic development investment from Steris Industrial Management Services, and Samantha will talk with us about that one as well.
Thank you again for the opportunity to speak tonight. Project Precision is Steris Instrument Management Services Incorporated. You'll remember this one. This is from September 2021. We came to you all. Steris was awarded an economic development grant at that time. They are anticipating investment having increased by roughly $10 million, and they are asking for you to consider revising the agreement to include this estimated increase in investment. They are constructing a surgical instrument processing facility in the Oakmont Business Park off of Dorada Road, located at 8501 Westmoreland Drive, Northwest in Concord. The county GIS address is 7885 Poplar Tent Road, Concord. The operation will provide outsourced surgical instrument reprocessing and instrument repair solutions by certified sterile processing professionals and highly trained repair technicians to customers in the region. Projected investment is now estimated to be between $19.95 million and $29.67 million in real and personal property. The Cabarrus County grant analysis is based on the estimated investment in real and personal property. Again, Steris is asking for your consideration to revise the 3-year 85% economic development grant and include an investment range on the projected investment. The estimated grant for the 3-year term is between $348,828 and $546,831. Net revenue to the county during that grant term would be between $61,000 and $96,500. A lot of numbers there. Happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Okay, questions for Samantha?
I have a few. Have they initiated their original grant that they received in 2021?
They have not.
Okay. And this proposed incentive, does that, I see you're trying to do the additional, which is fine. Does this proposed incentive wipe out the prior? Are we starting from scratch and that one's void?
Correct. This would just be a revision.
Okay. And is this particular grant, because there is that range, are we capping that contract at the 546,831?
Yes.
Okay. And this is 3 years, right?
Correct.
Okay.
What was the reasoning for them not activating the first grant that was passed in 2021?
Sure. Their construction has been delayed. They were at slow start. I don't know if you've been out there recently. It's a beautiful facility. They'll be in operation later this year, but it was a slow start. So typically, you would not initiate until either the building's in operation, it's fully completed, or they're further along than they have.
Okay.
They have been.
Okay.
Samantha, it's 115 new jobs, is that right?
Correct.
115 new jobs, and you say that the wages are above the current county. Can you be a little bit more specific about what those wages would be?
Sure. For those 115 jobs, their average wage is $52,942, and our current county average wage is just a little less than $47,000.
Is this in the city of Concord?
It is.
Okay. Did the city of Concord initiate a tax break for them as well?
They did in 2021, and we will actually be going to see them next month in May, and they will be holding a public hearing as well.
So what is the city grant on that?
Okay. Their range would be $226,000 to $354,000.
Okay, is there more discussion? Yes, sir.
When this incentive passed on September 20th, 2021, was that a unanimous decision?
It was.
Okay, further discussion? All right, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you all.
And we do need a public hearing on this as well. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and invite anyone to the podium that would like to speak on this project.
Larry Pittman again. I just didn't see anybody else coming up. I'm going to clarify something. I have nothing against these businesses. You know, I hope y'all do well. I really do. But if they can afford to pay all these higher salaries and stuff, seem like they don't need the taxpayers' money, you know? I mean, I consider this one of the most corrupt things that government does, is giving taxpayer money to businesses. It's just not right. It needs to stop. If I could have outlawed it while I was in the House, I would have done that. It needs to stop. And I'll tell you one last thing, that I'm not going to say anymore, that y'all may not realize. All those years I was in the House, and some of y'all tried so hard along with others to get rid of me, my opposition to incentives is a big part of the reason you couldn't get rid of me.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak on this project?
Well, I'd just like to say, there's a lot of jobs being lost now in the county. Companies are having to restrict hiring, and things are not looking good as they were. I think back when Trump got in, he was ridiculed for every direction. But he turned this country around by making good, sound decisions and helping businesses get going to provide jobs. That increased the tax revenue. So the man was smart. And then we get a person like we got in there right now that undoes it and makes things just horrible. Now, if you enjoy that, fine. You can hug up to him all you want to. But I don't. I don't enjoy that. I don't like seeing what we did have being taken away and being used for something else. But I respect you commissioners that are still standing up. I know you're going to take a lot of flack for it, but you're doing the right thing. There's 235,000 people that's going to agree with you, I can tell you that, maybe 300 that don't. So I think that's a pretty good odds right there. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Tammy Pittman. My question is, I think our unemployment rate is about 3.5% in Cabarrus County. So where are these employees coming from? Are they going to be Cabarrus County residents? We need to look at things like that. We're just incentivizing more people coming here, and then y'all complain about having to build more schools, more roads. We don't need to be increasing our population in Cabarrus County by people trying to get jobs.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. And commissioners, what would be your pleasure on this item?
I'll make a motion to award the economic development investment for Steris Instrument Management Services per whatever Lin Shu said when he read it the first time.
Okay, well, I think that to include the facts of what have been proposed, I would suggest that your motion read to approve an economic development agreement, 3 years, 85%, between Steris Instrument Management Services Incorporated and Cabarrus County, and to authorize the county manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the board, subject to review or revision by the county attorney, if that's acceptable.
That's acceptable.
Okay, and I will second that motion. And I will now open the floor for discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make a comment if I can. Talk about economic incentives. Mr. Pittman, I'm right there with you. I wish we didn't have to do it. But here's the problem. The other counties and the other states do it. And so if we don't do it, then that puts us out of the ball game. That's like going to a ball game without a glove or a ball bat. And my personal opinion is, if we're going to bring these businesses in here, then we're going to have to do just like the other counties do. And they roll the red carpet out to get these people in here. I know that Paige and Samantha can tell you some stories of other people that they've worked with, and I had never asked them, but I know they know. They can tell you what other companies or other counties or states offer these businesses to come there. Steve and I, and those that's been on the board for a while, we attend meetings with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, and we run into commissioners from all over the state. And when we go to the national meetings all over the country, and you just would not believe the people that would literally love to be in Cabarrus County's position. They're losing schools, they're losing jobs by the thousands, and people is going away, they're closing schools. You wouldn't believe it. And look what is going on in Cabarrus County. It's because of the forward-thinking, visionary leaders. And that's just the way it goes. You know, I'm just trying to be honest with you and being as frank as I can. You know, we're not the mom and pop county we used to be. We're 235,000 and growing. I don't know what the economists, I think I remember, Steve, you've been to some of those meetings. They're projecting, what, 250,000 people by the year 2030?
I think so.
I mean, you know, why do they come here?
Actually, 350,000, I
And,
think.
you know, we try to make this a good place for people to come in here, raise a family, have a good place to go to work, and be safe and secure, and provide the jobs. And that's what we're working hard to do. And there's division on the board. It's very obvious. And I'll say one more thing, you know, and then I'll shut up and we'll vote on it, you know. But I remember back 2013, when at least one of our sitting board members was on that board at that time, when Cabarrus County was closed for business. When I was elected in 2014, the Charlotte Business Journal, they had an article in there talking about Cabarrus County has been closed for business. When I got in on 2014, the county was reopened, and we've been able to manage to bring in probably, Steve, what would you say, $3 billion of tax base? $3 billion in tax base, whereas if it had gone like it was in 2013, where would that $3 billion tax base go? Somewhere else, some other county. We got it here, and we're just trying to make it better. Fund the schools, you know, and do the things that we need to do to make it the best place to live. And I think it's pretty evident by the people that's moving here that it's a great place to live, great schools. We fund all of that. We do all of those things. And an economic development project, just to give you a real quick example, Eli Lilly, a $2 billion project that whenever they get the incentivized time is expired, their taxes for that facility out there will pay the debt service for a high school. And if they're paying the debt service for the high school, then guess what? The taxpayers don't have to pay it. Now, that's pretty easy math for me to understand. But anyway, I'll hush, Mr. Chairman. But I get so frustrated and so aggravated because of so much misinformation out there. and just makes the job that much harder.
Well, Commissioner Shue, appreciate your comments, and I hate for you to get too upset and too worked up over it. We just simply disagree on some things. And there's nothing wrong with that. We each have our opinion. We can discuss that, talk about it, debate it, but reason to just get so worked up and just tore up over it, because we just have different opinions. But, to go back to your point, I've talked to some of these other commissioners from around the state, and there's some counties where they are aggressively pushing tax incentives, and they can't get any companies to come to their county, because companies want to come to a place like Cabarrus County that is attractive, a good place to do business. We have good schools. We have, we're conveniently located by Charlotte. We have the interstate system close to us. So they want to come to Cabarrus County. And I would disagree with you that it's just all about the tax break that they're going to get, because like I said, some of these other areas in the state, they're more aggressive on their tax incentives and they can't recruit. So, there's a flip side on that argument. As far as employment, there is a lot of jobs out there that are available. I hear from many business owners, even corporations, can't find employees. Can't find workers. I think we've had that issue here in local government. So, I'm all for creating more jobs. I want there to be more jobs. I want there to be economic opportunity out there. But, there is a lot of jobs out there. We see in Cabarrus County all the apartment complexes popping up all around the county. Some of these companies that are recruited in that bring their employees, they're having to fill these apartments. Well, in my opinion, there's entirely too many apartment complexes going up, and I don't think that's going to be good for our community in the long run. I'll switch gears just a bit, and there's two more points I want to make. The first point is, I hear the argument that, these tax breaks are going to benefit the local citizen, because if we didn't have the tax revenue from these businesses, then the local tax rate would be higher. That, having to pay for schools or EMS or sheriff's department. Whenever we have a situation like, let's say, Eli Lilly, that is paying a bare minimum of property taxes for 10 years. 10 years. Now, who's paying for the services that they're going to receive in that area? It's on the backs of the local taxpayer. For 10 years, this company's not going to pay property tax. Very small amount. So then who has to pick up the tab? That's our local taxpayer, and I have a problem with that. So in addition to that, I had met with Paige back whenever I first come on the commission board, and had mentioned I would like to see some sort of compromise on this. If this is so beneficial for our local taxpayer, I want to see that. I want to see it in black and white. And if we can capture these revenues, if a company receives a tax break for 3 years, after that 3 years, whatever additional tax revenue is collected by the county, we should dedicate that in a revenue stream to lower the tax rate for our average citizen. But it just goes into the general fund for us just to spend on whatever. But I feel like that would be a good compromise. We haven't discussed that since, so there hasn't been any follow-up, but that's something that I feel like if we could see, if the local taxpayer could see a direct benefit from this, and we could adjust the tax rate based upon the new revenues of these companies like an Eli Lilly, if we could do that, I would vote for every one of them that come in here, because I want my tax rate to go down. So I feel like there's some compromises that we can have here, and some discussions that we can have in the future, but of course, I can't support this one.
Okay, other comments?
My question would be, is we have to give guidance to the EDC. And every single meeting we have, you'll find out what my vote is when I'm sitting in front of the public. If these are all great ideas, which I agree, we agree on probably more than we disagree, then why can't we do that and figure it out before that company comes and stands in this room and gets embarrassed? That's guidance that we can give to Paige and her team right then and there, but instead we get a no answer, or you'll find out when everybody's here. So I'm all for it, but I'd like to see us to be able to do that before that company gets here, is what I would like to see.
Okay, other discussion?
Just one more couple
Yes, sir.
things, Sue. You said the taxpayers don't get anything. Well, we always get 15%. In any case, we get 15%, whereas we were getting nothing. But now we get 15%. And then another thing, that most people don't understand. They think that we just got this big old checkbook up here and we just writing hundreds of thousands of dollars of checks to the businesses. That's not the case at all. There's a contract between that business and the county. And unless that business dots their I's, cross their T's, and all the different things, and our tax department does their audit to make sure that they are in total compliance with the agreement, there's no incentive given. And we've had some like that. We've had some that we had an incentive for them, but for whatever reason, they did not comply with the terms of the contract, so therefore, there was no incentive to be given out. But once that they've done everything that they're supposed to do, and if I'm wrong, somebody correct me, when they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's and paid the taxes, then we'll rebate back to them the percentage that we agreed on in the contract after it had been audited and everything was up to snuff like it's supposed to be. So it's not like we just write checks out just for the fun of it. No.
I think you did a good job of explaining that. This particular company, Steris Instrument Management Services, delighted for them to be back. There are some communities that we see across the state where we have projects like this come up and they never come to fruition. And to have one to come back after some of the things that we've experienced over the past few years and want to increase their investment is particularly rewarding, I think, to the county. I wish that I were better on math, because when I'm, based on the discussion that we just heard, some of the comments talking about the amount, and Eli Lilly was referenced as one of those companies, I think their investment, the last number that I heard, is approaching $2 billion. And I don't think I can figure out what 15% of $2 billion is on my telephone. But it is a substantial amount of money. And we're talking about a substantial amount of tax revenue to the county. I was at an event this past weekend and was talking with somebody that told me, said, this person just came up to me and said, you probably don't know me, but I'm your dentist's daughter. And she went on to introduce herself, and she is the director of one of the departments at Eli Lilly. That's a local Cabarrus County resident, somebody that grew up here, that's lived here their entire life, that now has an excellent job opportunity with this company that's come into the community. Were it not for that, then this person would either be leaving to go to another part of the state and to get that type of employment. So for us to provide those job opportunities here, I think is a very valuable thing. There are so many other intangibles that come along with that, as far as the money that's spent in our local businesses by the people that enjoy these jobs that are provided by these companies. They buy automobiles, they buy gas, they support many of our small businesses in a lot of different ways across the community. And so I think the value of that sometimes is as great as some of the other things that we talk about. But we do have a motion on the floor, and if there is no further discussion, we will move to a vote. All in favor, and I'll read the motion since we've had quite a bit of conversation since it was made. Motion to approve an economic development agreement, 3 years, 85%, between Steris Instrument Management Services Incorporated and Cabarrus County, and to authorize the county manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the board, subject to review or revision by the county attorney. All in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, that motion passes 3-2. Okay, and the next item on our agenda from the Sheriff's Office is dedication of bridge in memory of Lieutenant Robert J. Urey. And I don't think we have anybody down specific to talk about that, so I will offer the summary. On May 5th, 1972, Lieutenant Robert J. Urey was killed while responding to a domestic disturbance in Midland, North Carolina. He left behind his wife, Myra Urey, daughter, Ann Urey Griggs, and son, Robert Urey Jr. It is requested that the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners approve this proclamation requesting the naming of North Carolina Highway 2427 Bridge over the Rocky River, both east and west, bridges number 341 and 22, in honor and memory of Lieutenant Robert J. Urey, and appropriate signage be placed at the site. And this does call for a public hearing, and prior to the hearing, I will read the resolution. Whereas Lieutenant Robert J. Urey Sr. served the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office for 17 years with diligence and honor, and whereas Lieutenant Robert J. Urey Sr. was killed in the line of duty on May 5th, 1972, in an ambush while responding to a domestic situation in what is now the town of Midland within Cabarrus County. Whereas Lieutenant Robert J. Urey Sr. was 49 years old at the time of his death, and that this was the third line of duty death for the Cabarrus County Sheriff's Office. Whereas Lieutenant Robert J. Urey Sr. was survived by his wife, Myra Urey, daughter Ann Urey Griggs, and son Robert Urey Jr., all of whom remained in the town of Midland. Whereas the actions and career of Lieutenant Robert J. Urey Sr. serve as a worthy example for all citizens of Cabarrus County, and a fitting memorial to his memory has been requested and is well-deserved and long overdue. Now therefore be it resolved by the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners that it hereby requests that the North Carolina Board of Transportation name the Highway 2427 Bridge over the Rocky River in Midland, bridges number 341 and 22, in the honor and memory of Lieutenant Robert J. Urey Sr., and that the appropriate signage be placed at the site. And as I mentioned earlier, this does call for a public hearing, so at this time I will open the public hearing and invite anyone to the podium that would like to speak on this matter. Okay, seeing no one, we will close the public hearing. And commissioners, you've heard the resolution. What would be your pleasure on this item?
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion?
Just an update on this. This is the final piece that the Sheriff's Department needs and the DOT needs to move forward with the application process. There is a letter of commitment from both Midland and the Sheriff's Department to fund the signage to go on 2427. That has also been sent to the DOT. DOT is planning to meet in June, I believe it is, with this packet of information that has gone through and hopefully approve this.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes unanimously. Next item is an operational update from EMS, and we are happy to have Justin Brines for that item.
Thank you, Commissioners. I was going to ask you how I work it. You got it, perfect. Thank you for the opportunity. I will be brief. I know this meeting has been somewhat lengthy tonight. However, this item is very important to me as well as the chief. I speak on his behalf tonight as well. He's here in the room if there's any questions that I can't answer. Recently, there have been some comments in this forum regarding our response model, specifically our standby policy. Those comments have been inaccurate. So my job tonight is to make sure that you have accurate information, but more importantly, that the public has accurate information. EMS leadership wanted to take a moment to provide that to you tonight. So we put a few slides together. Again, I will do my best not to be lengthy with them, if I can get this to work. I put up a heat map of the last year of call volume data. This was from March of 2022 to March of 2023. You notice on the map there are ambulances that designate our station locations throughout the county. This is a heat map, so the darker the color, you see the more intense the call volume. So I'll get in a minute just to explain to you how we move units around the county based off call volume, but I wanted to provide you with this visual depiction so that you could understand that we do have stations and trucks that are housed in the area where the call volume is. However, when those trucks go out on calls, we do move units around, and I'll explain why that is here in just a second. I put another visual depiction here just for some folks that like percentages. This is total call volume percentage from March of 2022 to March of 2023. This is broken down by response zone. We still have those in the county, although we do use a system called automatic vehicle location, or AVL, when we dispatch our trucks. So the response zones are not quite as important as they used to be, but it does give you a visual depiction of the geography. Again, very similar to the heat map to show you where call volume is based off of the response zone in the county. We are mandated by general statute to provide EMS service to the citizens and visitors of this county. Our system plan, which is required by North Carolina general statute, is reviewed at least annually by us. It's reviewed at least every 2 years by the North Carolina Office of EMS, who is the regulatory body who makes sure that we do what we say we're going to do. It is reviewed as frequently as needed based on call volume by our Quality Management Committee, that is a board of multidisciplinary folks from all throughout the county in emergency services, first responders. So this plan is looked at constantly, just to be honest. You have it in your packet, the actual policy. I did not put that up here, but I'm going to give you a visual depiction of what that looks like here in just a second. Our goal is to respond to calls within the county within 8 minutes or less. That is an average, so there are times where we respond, it takes a little longer to respond, there's times where it takes a little less to respond, but we do maintain that 8 minutes average, and we have the entirety of my 25 years with the county. We've been sometimes in the 7:45, we've never really crept above 8, but we've kept it within that 7:45 to 8 minutes. Our shoot time, meaning the time that we are dispatched to the call until the time we get out the door, has to be within 60 seconds or less. That's 24 hours a day, day shift and night shift. We have to be in the truck and moving to the call within a minute. Within our system plan, our system data in regards to response time, fractile response time, unit placement, which is what we're talking about now, unit hour utilization, and standby policies are monitored as part of the quality management program. We have quarterly meetings with this committee. If anybody ever wants to see the minutes, they're public. We'd be glad to provide those. If anybody ever has questions or issues with how we respond and bring that up, we certainly would address that in a timely manner. I don't want to not take just a second to say thank you to our first responders throughout the county. Although it may take us 8 minutes to get an ambulance to the scene, they often arrive much sooner. So we have EMTs that fall under our system plan that can provide BLS or basic life support care. They are on scene sometimes within 2 or 3 minutes and provide care. We recognize once a year cardiac arrest survivors, and those EMTs and first responders are a part of that process every year. We thank them every year for the work that they do. So while it may take 8 minutes to get an ambulance there, you have an EMT who's very highly trained and qualified there very quickly. We do use AVL, or automatic vehicle locator, dispatch, which basically means the closest unit to the call is going to be dispatched. So it's a GPS in the truck, and the closest truck to the call is going to be dispatched. So we don't really use those response zones as much as we did, because wherever the closest truck is, if they're a mile closer, that's the one that's going to be dispatched to the call. And our standby guidelines are used to move units around the county to ensure that the unit proximity is as close to the call location as possible. So do we move trucks around? Yes, we do. And I'm going to show you how here in just a second. We do that to make sure we have a truck close to the call. This is, again, a depiction of where the trucks are located in the county with all units in quarters, no unit on a call. You can see we have units up and down the 2985 corridor. We have one out in the Bar Road, Odell area. Even further west now, out in the Harris Road area, we have a unit in Midland. We have a unit in Mount Pleasant. The next few pictures that I'll show you basically indicate when a truck goes on a call. So When the two trucks in red here, which are up around Station 1, that's our main base right now, when they go on a call, we move a truck from Bar Road or Kannapolis down to that area to cover that area. And we rotate those two, so we don't use the same truck every time. We move them based off of which one went last, basically, down to cover that area, again, to get a truck closest to proximity of the call. So that is when all Station 1 units are out on a call. The next slide shows you when all Station 2 units are out on a call. That is the station across from Central Cabarrus High School. At this point, we rotate between Mount Pleasant, Midland, and Harrisburg, and we move a truck up to that location, again, to have a truck closer to proximity based on call volume that I showed you on the heat map. We rotate between those three trucks, so not the same truck goes all the time. They take turns moving up to that area based on call volume to make sure they're as close to the call. The next slide here, my clicker is on strike, shows you when the Mount Pleasant truck goes on a call, we do move one of the Station 2 units to 49 and 601, not actually to the station, but to the physical location. If no trucks are on a call and we can move a truck all the way to Mount Pleasant, we would do that, but we don't, we move them closer to the geographical area of Mount Pleasant when it goes on a call. The next one here shows you when Midland goes on a call, it's the same thing. We move one of the two trucks from Station 2 to 49 and 601, or further down 601 to Allen Fire Department, where they stand by to keep a truck closer to that area, again, for 3% of our total call volume. That is the best use of resources in that area when the truck goes on a call, but we do move a unit down there. When 3 and 8, or Midland and Mount Pleasant, both go on a call, we do the same thing. We move a Station 2 truck to 49 and 601 or to Allen Fire Department to cover both of those areas to ensure that we have a truck closer to the call. When all of Kannapolis, Station 4, and all of Station 1 go out, we move the Bar Road truck closer to the middle there. You can see this is getting down to when we have multiple units on a call. Again, 1, 4, and 5 out, we move the truck from Weddington Road over to the Station 1 area. Thing needs a battery. This is when 2 units are left within the county. So as you can see, we have all our ambulances out and 2 trucks left. We move 1 to 49 and 601 to Allen Fire Department and 1 to Station 2. And then we put Squad 410 on standby, and then we put our community paramedics on standby. So I added a couple little vehicles there. And then the last one here is, do what? Okay, yeah, the last one is 1 unit left in the county. Again, we put a truck in the middle of the county, and then we utilize community paramedics as well as Squad 410. And then the next one is when all units are out, we call adjacent counties to stand by at the county line, and all of our supervisors with staff vehicles go on standby to run calls in that situation. So, next slide. That is all of the update. I know that was somewhat of a bunch of moving parts, but I wanted to show you the way the trucks move around and why. I do want to be clear, never in my 25 years with Cabarrus County have we ever taken a truck from Midland to put in Mount Pleasant when that truck goes on a call. We've never done that. I've been here for 25 years, so I'm not sure where that information came from, but we certainly want to make sure that everybody has the accurate information there. I wanted to give you a brief year in review. I know recently we had a salary or compensation update that you all supported very well. I wanted to give you just a second to look at some data. I won't spend a whole lot of time with this. Our call volume is increasing over the last 2 years. We've maintained that 8 minutes response time. Our collection rate for billable calls is at 72%, which is one of the best in the state. We had a 46% cardiac arrest survival. That is patients in a shockable rhythm who were discharged from the hospital in cardiac arrest. This was again from the previous year, and we produced about $8.5 million projected in revenue for FY23. Our staffing trends look very good. We only have 6 full-time vacancies right now. That's 5% of our full-time staff. We have 1 part-time vacancy. That's 2% of our part-time staff. And we have 3 employees in the RCCC paramedic program. Basically, we have joined with them to get paramedics to come out of RCCC straight into employment with us with a 2-year contract to work. We support them through school. They graduate in May, and we'll put 3 more right back in that program. So that's a very important partnership that we are proud of. I think the next one. I'll close with this. I don't lose sleep over much. I've been doing this for 25 years, as I said before. I've heard the word unethical used at this podium to describe the perceived practice that I have hopefully disproven to you tonight. The word unethical does not belong in the same sentence with Cabarrus County EMS. It never has, and it never will. As long as I'm at the helm or near the helm with Chief Lentz, that's not a thing. Our departmental core values are as follows: leadership, collaboration, preparation, and integrity. And that last one says we'll respect others while being honest and truthful with our actions and our words. Our core values are important because our why is this: everyone deserves competent, compassionate care. That's everybody in this county, that's everybody visiting this county, and we do our best to provide that at all times. I will say that I ask that you share this presentation as well as the policy with any of your constituents who may have questions. I love coffee, and I would love to buy somebody a cup of coffee if they want to come sit down and open the book. We'll show you anything we have. If you have input about how you feel like we should be doing something differently, we'll listen to that, and if it makes sense, we'll implement it. So that's how we operate. I'd be more than happy to meet with any municipality, elected official, or any other member of the public that would like to discuss, and I speak for the chief when I say that as well. With that, are there any questions?
Questions for Justin? I'll ask one.
Yep.
You mentioned shifting the trucks around, which is quite a, I'm not sure a ballet would be the correct
That's a good word.
That's kind of what it makes me think about, but I'm sure that there are probably some people that I think in one instance you mentioned that the truck may be moved to 601 and 49.
Correct.
So there are times that there will be EMS vehicles parked in the parking lot of a fast food restaurant or a grocery store or whatever. I mean, there's a number of locations available. And so I'm assuming that that's the reason.
Correct.
That you see that. And based on what I think I've heard you say before, that's becoming a stronger trend that we probably will see more of that in the future, that the trucks may, rather than be sitting at a station, they will be out scattered about the county closer to the population.
Correct. Our goal is to never put a truck on the side of the road. It's not safe. It's not, from a crew resource management and satisfaction, it's not the best thing in the world to do, but there are times we have to do it because we need to put a truck physically closer to the area that the truck went out so that they might be 3, 4, 5 minutes closer just by being in the truck sitting on the side of the road. So we try not to leave them there for long periods of time. We do have partnerships with all of our fire departments throughout the county, so we can go to Allen Fire Department at 49 and 601 to get them, in a place with a bathroom and not have to sit in the truck. But anytime you see a truck sitting somewhere with 2 people in it, they're in service. So it doesn't mean that they're, just hanging out. They're in the area that they're supposed to be in. And if they're out at Food Line or something and they get a call, they're where they're supposed to be and they respond. So again, we love ride-alongs. We would love to have folks come take a look at what we do. Our headquarters will be open in August. We are more than just a little bit excited about that. So we would love to show you around the house and share anything we have with you. We are truly an open book. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Okay, we move to item 5 from Planning and Development, Budget Amendment to North Carolina Weatherization Assistance Program Contract. We're happy to have Susie Morris for that item.
Good evening. What you have before you this evening is a request for a budget amendment. The state provided us with the current contract, asked that we do a mid-year check-in to see where we were at. As a result of that check-in, we requested that there was a 1-unit decrease to the DOE Weatherization Assistance Program. So the budget also needs to be decreased by that amount, which is approximately $6,892, and that's the administrative costs associated with that particular unit reduction. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions for Susie?
Just a clarification, when you say unit decrease or reduction, can you explain that just a little bit so I make sure I understand real quick?
So when the state sends the contracts to the county, they typically relate it to money and then an average cost per unit. In this case, the average cost is roughly $8,000. So because of, cost increases, the number of units needs to decrease by 1.
That's what I kind of suspected, but I wanted to just make sure.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, additional discussion. And we do need a motion on this item. So what would be your pleasure, commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we adopt the budget amendment.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we move now to item 6, which is F9, that was removed from the consent agenda. That is rules of procedures updates as discussed at the board retreat. Attachments to that item are the rules of procedure as well as the rules of procedure updated language. That, just to begin the discussion on that, I think our rules of procedure, I'm looking at, I think were last modified in January of 2019. The changes that are proposed include 3 items. These 3 items were discussed at our retreat on Saturday, February 25th. I have here a copy of the written material that was handed to each commissioner at that meeting. I think we also had a PowerPoint presentation that was presented on these 3 items at that time as well. So that was on February 25th. They were discussed again at our April work session. So that was about 2 months roughly that we had to consider those items, talk about them, publicize them, whatever you choose to do. So with that being said, oh, yeah. Well, and of course, during that time, there was conversation with the School of Government as to what they recommended on these items. There was also conversation with neighboring counties, other counties in the state that have dealt with these same issues. The one in particular, there are a number of other counties that do have the remote meeting capability policy in place. There, as a matter of fact, and these recommendations were presented by me. And the language that was used in regards to the remote meeting capability came from another county in North Carolina. We got a copy of their minutes. That's where that language came from, which they have, by the way, implemented it. The one requiring the 1-hour rule on proposals or inquiries came from another county in North Carolina. The one regarding the vacancies on the Board of Commissioners was a discussion that arose from within our board. The word that came back from the School of Government, and I will welcome, I think that the county attorney has had some conversation with them over some period of time, as have a number of other people. There, of course, on the 1-hour rule, there's no issues surrounding that. On the remote meeting capability, the word that I received back was that there was a lot of ambiguity in that statute when the emergency order was in place. Of course, that is the way that we operated. Once that emergency order was rescinded, it was not crystal clear as to how those statutes govern that. Final word back from the School of Government that I received was establish your local policy and abide by it on both of those other items. If there are concerns or challenges, then that would be the way to initiate an action with the justice system and let the court decide what would be appropriate in those cases. On the one regarding remote meeting capability, I don't think there are a great deal of issues. I did speak with the chairman of the Board of Commissioners of one of the other counties over the weekend and asked him what issues they may have had since they had instituted that policy. And his response back to me was, what do you mean? I said, well, have you had citizens that are unhappy with it? Have there been complaints or have there been issues? And he said, no, none. I don't think they have used it. I think it was put in place very much as a precautionary measure to provide for situations. This is not to, number one, I'm thinking back in some of the public comments that I've heard earlier tonight, something about instituting a policy so somebody could work outside the county and still serve. I got the impression that they were saying that they had moved to another location and continued to serve as a commissioner. Well, that would not be allowed to happen. In order to be an elected official in Cabarrus County, you must reside within the county. So that would take care of itself. The situations that I think that would be more particular and from my standpoint, and I'm certainly not trying to control the conversation, I'll open it up for other comments as well. If Commissioner Workman fell yesterday and broke his leg, and the doctor said, you cannot put weight on your leg, then he would not have been able to attend the meeting here tonight. We just had 2 votes that resulted in 140 new jobs for the county and an investment of about $51 million. And those, and of course I've said this before, for those are wonderful projects, and we're proud to have them. For Cabarrus County, they're great. Those are smaller projects compared to some of the other ones that we have dealt with over the past couple of years. When there are counties all over the state that would love to have 2 in one night like we had tonight, and they don't have those opportunities. At any rate, as a general rule, when these companies are coming to us and they're looking at multiple sites, and I know there may be some disagreement as to how many opportunities that they would have. If Commissioner Workman had not been here tonight because he fell and broke his leg yesterday, I mean, he may be sitting in a chair fully capable to participate in this meeting via the electronic capabilities that we have now, which 10 years ago we did not have, but he would be visible. You would be able to see him. He would be able to hear every public comment that was made here, and those things are specified in this proposed language. It has those provisions in there. Members have to be seen. They have to be able to have two-way conversation. You know, all of those kind of things. We could get into a lot of detail, but at any rate, had he not been able to participate because of an accident that happened, then we would have had a 2-2 vote on those 2 projects that we just voted on a few minutes ago, and the answer to them was, well, I'm sorry, we can't give you a decision. You'll have to come back when Kenny's leg gets better. And that would have been the same if it had been a $20 million project or a $2 billion project. So in my opinion, that is a piece of good government. That is Many thousands of people voted for every person that sits in a commissioner's seat on this board, and they voted for them to represent them. If an unforeseen accident should prevent them from doing that, then I do not think it is unreasonable for them to have the opportunity to participate in a meeting via those methods. This is not something that you just do because you don't feel like getting dressed and coming out tonight. This is not something that, it's not in any way, this says, when there is a request to participate remotely, the requesting commissioner should submit the request to the chair, vice chair, manager, or clerk as soon as the member is aware of the need, but to the extent possible, preferably within 48 hours, but not less than 12 hours before the official meeting so that proper arrangements might be put in place. The clerk should be made aware as soon as possible. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair or vice chair will announce that a named commissioner will be participating remotely. Minutes from the meeting shall reflect which commissioners participated remotely. The remote participation rules shall be followed, and it goes on in detail about that. It's not something for a matter of convenience. This is my 11th year serving on this board, and I have missed one meeting, and that was when I was out of the country. And that's the only time. And I would say the same thing is true of just about everybody else here. When they have missed a meeting, it has been for some extraordinary circumstance. So I think that this is taking advantage of technology that's available to us now. If you had, I said 10 years ago, if you had told me 5 years ago, I want you to get on a Zoom meeting, I probably would not have had a clue what you were talking about. And I'll have to be honest, I'm still have some challenges from time to time in that area. But that is the part on that one. On the piece about resignation of a commissioner, and I'm sure we'll hear everybody else's opinion. I'll just go ahead and state mine while we're talking about it. I think in the event, and since I have been on the board, that has happened twice. We have had two commissioners that have resigned for different reasons. I think just as I said about the remote participation, there are many thousands of people that vote for each person that sits in this seat up here because they think that of the choices offered to them, that is the best person to represent them and do that job. If you have a commissioner that has to resign for any number of reasons, it could be health reasons, it could be the fact that perhaps they have gotten new employment, they're going to have to move out of the county, it could be that they have an ill family member that they have to take care of. It could be a multitude of reasons. I do not think that it is unreasonable for that person who may have received as many as 50 or 60,000 votes in the election to have a voice. I'm not saying to select their replacement, I'm saying to have a vote, and that's what this provision would offer. There are some questions from a statutory basis as to the constitutional wording of that. And so if this policy is adopted in our rules of procedure, the idea would be that we would never, ever use any of them. And that hopefully would be the case. And I think that there are probably quite a few others. And we probably, I dare say, I'll just speak for myself. I don't read these rules of procedure often enough, but I have read them from cover to cover. I discovered a couple of things as I was reading them. I thought, oh, wow, well, I hadn't been doing that right. Hadn't been making, pulling an item off the consent agenda does not require a vote. We never have denied one. We always just do it, but, anyway, So this is an attempt to address some of those issues. Some of the comments that I've heard about lack of transparency or trying to slide something under the rug or hide something in consent agenda, I think are inaccurate and unreasonable. As I mentioned earlier, we had 18 items on the consent agenda tonight. Every single one of those items, including this one about these rules of procedure change, were discussed openly at our last work session. And as I mentioned earlier, and we had 2 months to deliberate on them, so I don't think there's anybody that could keep a secret for 2 months in Cabarrus County about anything. So I think that is unreasonable to say that somebody was trying to be deceptive. But with all that being said, I will open the floor for any discussion. Well, we have two options. We can discuss this, or if somebody has a motion they would like to make, they can do that, and then we can have discussion, whatever is your pleasure.
I'd like to discuss.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and start with discussion. So as you mentioned, there's three parts to this with the rules changes. The first one with the remote meeting change of language. We're all adults here, and life gets in the way, and there's going to be a time where we miss a meeting. For instance, we'll use that if Commissioner Wortman fell and broke his leg again, then, life will get in the way. And I think we are all reasonable enough up here to understand that in that instance, we would allow somebody to participate remotely. I think the issue with this is this takes it all the way to the other extreme to where there could be a commissioner up here that decides they want to live at the beach 6 months out of the year. Now, they may be registered here in Cabarrus County, registered to vote. They can run here in Cabarrus County, but they could live at the beach or the mountains for 6 months out of the year, Wyoming, wherever they want to be, and always participate remotely. And I could see where that's a problem. I participate in some remote meetings now with some of the committees that that I'm assigned to, and a lot of the times it's not as effective as a face-to-face meeting. So the issue with this remote participation is the language that is expanding this well beyond than just a reasonable situation where somebody has a health issue, once and they need to participate remotely. This just really goes to the other extreme. So that's the problem I have with that. Now, I would like to ask the attorney his opinion on just this piece as far as the remote participation piece.
Well, I would start out by saying, excuse me, that if you look at Rule 3, the part that is actually crossed out, our Rule 3 before this change actually allowed remote participation. We just never used it, but it was already in the rule. Now, if you go to the school of government and talk to the professors over there, the ones that deal with matters of local government, open meetings and stuff like that, they don't all look at this the same way. And I can tell you, from my discussions with them, there are several things that cause that to be. One is that the statutes under 153A that talk about participation by commissioners in their meetings are pretty old, but they seem to require to be physically present. There's some language in there that talks about being physically present. And whatever that means, I think back then it probably meant that you were actually, in the room. But physically present these days with technology could be interpreted a different way. So there's a little bit of disagreement on that. Plus, if you look at the open meetings law, there's actually some language in there that seems to say that you can participate and have an open meeting when you're not all together in the same room. So there's language in there that cuts the other way. And then if you look at the language that was in the state of emergency statute that was passed, with the pandemic, that allowed remote meetings. Some of the professors felt that because you needed that language in that special provision, that it simply meant that the language that was in the old statutes didn't allow it. So I say there's just, you get different opinions on that. So it's not all uniform. And, so having different ways of looking at it, exists because of the history of it and what you see in the other statutes. So that's really about as much as I can tell you.
Well, okay, so I know you serve as the attorney for the town of Harrisburg as well. Did they go through this same sort of situation? 'Cause I know there was a ruling on your behalf then. I had seen some language and just curious of how that differs from this situation.
They don't actually have a rule on it, one way or the other.
Right, but
Now
you had
they
a
have-
rule.
but
You had a rule.
Yeah, well, I've always felt that if you look at it overall, that, if it's handled in the right way, where everyone can hear each other, and it is the person, that it was, to me, it was legally acceptable under those conditions. Down in Harrisburg, you mentioned them, there was one board member whose job took him out of town a lot of times. He's not on there anymore, but he was. His job had him out of town a good bit, and so he would participate remotely, and that was fine with everybody. I mean, there was no question it was him, and, there was, using the technology, you could tell, and then, he would be allowed to vote and participate in the meeting. But it was a special, and when he was in town, he was always at the meeting, but when his job took him out of town, he would participate in that way. So that's the way it was done down there. And I say, they don't have a rule one way or the other about it, but they always allowed it, And I can say this from my experience, no one has ever abused that. It's only been used when they basically, either their job or maybe their health, didn't allow them to participate or come to the meeting,
So if there's, so if we don't proceed with adding this language to our rules and procedures, it's still a possibility somebody can participate remotely, within reason.
Well, I mean, if you, in the way it's been, presented here, with the language that existed, being crossed out and being replaced by this language, which is more detailed than what we did have, I mean, if you went back to the old language, you could still do it. I mean, you would have a rule that would allow it. It just wouldn't be, I say, as detailed as this one is.
Right. Okay. Well, that takes me to my point that I feel like the current language expands this availability to participate remotely as much as you want. And I have a problem with that. But going on to the second part, the appointment process, I have an issue with if there's a commissioner here that's going to resign and relinquish their duties that they were elected to do, I don't feel like they should have a say-so in their appointment. Who's going to go through, who's going to be their appointee. If you're giving up that, position, your last thing should not be who gets to appoint. I feel like this is all being discussed because somebody up here on this board is going to resign. We would not be discussing any of this if we're not planning for something to happen. It's common sense. We would not be having this discussion if there was not some plan. And Lynn, I'm going to ask you directly, do you plan to resign?
I've been hearing that for the last 2 years. I'm still here. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be here. And the reason I'm going to be here is because I'm doing exactly what my God told me to do. I wasn't going to run. I wasn't going to run for county commissioner again. And I prayed diligently. Steve, he'll tell you, he called me and said, well, have you heard from God yet? And I kept waiting and waiting and waiting to see that I did what God told me to do. And so when I got clarity on what to do, I felt like that God never would give me something to do and then not give me the ability to do it. Now, like I said earlier, it's a little bit harder for me than it would be for you, Chris, because I got a couple of years on you and a couple of health issues. But no, it is not my plan. It never has been my plan and to resign. But if it come to that, I would not embarrass my fellow commissioners by stumbling around and not being able to do my job. I would let the chairman know that I couldn't do it no more, and I would do it, I promise you, I would do it the right way. But no, it's not my intentions to resign. Y'all gonna have to put up with me for at least 3.5 more years. And as far now, if something else happens out of my control, now I can't help that. But it could happen to you, Chris.
Oh, certainly.
You know, you might fall off and break your neck before you get out of here tonight.
That's right. You might hope that, but.
No, I mean, but the thing about it is, though, I done tried to retire several times. I can't retire. I don't want to retire. I am a public servant, and I want to continue being a public servant. I'm not like some folks. They endure what they're doing. I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm honored that the citizens of Cabarrus County put me in. I've been through 9 elections, 6 elections, and then 3 primaries. And that tells you that we must be doing a little something right, and I'm planning on keeping on doing it. So it's not about me.
Okay,
It could
so
be
you-
anybody on the board.
Right. So you're not planning to resign,
No.
Chairman Morris or Commissioner
No.
Wortman, Commissioner Strain?
No.
Okay. Because as I said, we would not be having this discussion if there was not some kind of plan. Mark my words, something's going to happen in the future with somebody resigning. I feel that. I feel like it's common sense.
Let me say one more thing too, Chris. So we can just get all this out in the open, everybody have a clear understanding. Now, you've seen what we voted on tonight, economic development. We had a 3-2 vote 2 times. All right, now just say, for whatever reason, Chairman Morris couldn't be here tonight, or Kenny couldn't be here, or I couldn't be here. What would we have? A 2-2. All right, what if we had a death or a resignation? Well, Chris and Barbara are going to be trying to find them a third person real quickly, just like the other 2 would be doing. Can you see the division that would cause?
Well,
So
it's
you
a
know,
process.
so there is an answer to that. And I believe it's in the bill, Steve, you can clarify it, that if we, the remaining commissioners, whoever they are, haven't selected a replacement commissioner within 10 days, then it goes to the Superior Court judge to make the appointment. Okay? And then another thing, you were talking about, well, it's not going to matter, but that's the thing. We can't wait till it happens before we decide to do something. We're just trying to prepare in the event that something should happen, because we haven't prepared.
Right. It's preparing for that third vote, because if something
that's what it
happened
boils down to.
and somebody resigns, it's going to be a 2-2.
Yeah.
And that's the situation that the powers that be doesn't want. So continuing on this about the appointment, I'm going to ask the attorney about his opinion on, is this constitutional? Because I've heard that it's not constitutional. I've heard that, it goes against state statute. So I want to hear your formal ruling.
Well, I don't know that I can give a formal ruling on that, but I think the way it's drafted here, it is constitutional, and it is allowed by the statutes. But I would admit that there are probably other people that feel that it is not. It's one of those provisions that I think people can have a difference of opinion on it. But the way it's drawn, I think it is, there's nothing in the state statutes that would deny someone who resigns at a time later on to be able to vote on their replacement, so long as they are still a commissioner.
So what's the repercussions if you say some would say that this is, not legal? What is the situation that happens if this comes about, somebody resigns, there's an appointment, and then somebody, brings a legal suit, says this is not, what kind of situation are we getting ourselves into?
Well, I mean, there could be someone could challenge it if it were to come up, and then there might be a lawsuit that would come out of that, and then a judge would have to decide. And it might not be at a trial level. It might take an appellate decision on it to have it sorted out. Because the statute, a lot of the statutes under 153A, which is the county statutes, some of them, I say, are pretty old and, been in place for a long period of time, and situations have changed, or people have seen circumstances that have come up where it can be interpreted in different ways. So I'm just saying that, that happens a lot of time, with statutes. They're drawn up, and people think they mean a certain thing, and it may be the way it was intended to be read, by the draft person. But then, after time passes, and you see other situations that can come up under that statute, then you can, there are different ways people can say there's different ways to look at it. So, and so that's why you end up having the courts having to make a decision on it. So it could come to that.
Okay.
That's really as much as I think I could tell you.
Well, I don't think it would be best for us to put ourselves in that situation. I think that's a dangerous situation for us to put ourselves in willingly. And then my last point, whenever, talking about transparency, I think the issue is, this was mentioned at the retreat. Then at the retreat, and so whenever it was mentioned, it said that, I remember Chairman Morris, you said that this would be discussed in our March work session meeting. That did not happen. It went, pushed to April, and I believe Mike Downs sent out an email saying they're waiting on some legal rulings or what, from what I can recall. But somewhere in that point, a bill gets introduced in the state legislature that apparently, with my conversations with the state legislators, that they were told that the commission board had agreed to this. I hadn't agreed to anything. We had talked about this briefly talked about this at the retreat. It was briefly mentioned. It was said, and there was no action to be taken. It just said that, you had said that we would bring this up at our March work session. That didn't happen. And somewhere in that meantime, a bill gets introduced in the legislature to address this. And I had to hear that from the community. Steve, the chairman, Mike Downs, county manager, nobody communicated that with me. I would think that if there was a bill introduced in the legislature that directly affect our governing board, we should have some communication on that. I don't understand, how we didn't get any communication on that. And then, as I said, from my conversations with state legislators, that they were told that the commission board agreed to this, and that's not true. So I think that's where the transparency issue comes in, and I think that's where, it just is what it is.
Yeah. I'll follow up on the transparency issue. Steve, you had mentioned that this is going on, some of these changes are in other neighboring counties. That was never relayed to us. Which counties? I'd like to know which counties these are.
Well, I think it was relayed. I think we had a very specific discussion, and we can pull up the recording and listen to it if you'd like to. But the one on remote participation is Mecklenburg County.
Okay.
Is one that recently put that in place.
That one
And
is.
there are several other municipalities,
Okay.
and I think maybe a couple other counties, but I've not done a lot of extensive research to try to label them all.
Okay. With regards to Mecklenburg County, did you happen to see where, I mean, there was a problem in Mecklenburg County where they were in virtual meetings and they were participating via phone, and it was actually somebody else voting. It wasn't that person.
That's the reason that they implemented this procedure, to eliminate the possibility of that happening. As you know, as I mentioned earlier when I said we probably don't read these rules of procedure frequently enough, if we were to say right now, okay, let's just end this discussion. Let's just leave it like it is. This is too much trouble. The way that our rules read right now, a member may remotely participate in board meetings so long as they can be clearly heard by all present at the meeting and can clearly hear the discussion being had by the present quorum. The remote participant may vote on any item so long as they are fully informed prior to the vote. That's the way our rules read right now. That leaves open the possibility of the situation that you just mentioned. That means if you laid a cell phone up here and put it on speakerphone and everybody in the room could hear it, and they could hear everybody in the room, that would be all that would be required. So what we have placed in our, in this new language, eliminates the possibility of such a situation as you just described, because they would be visible, it would be verified that you could see them talking, they could see you talking, and so forth.
Right, and I think part of the other issue with that I had was, and like I said, we did not vote on this, we discussed it. I specifically asked, let me go back and read this, because you had given us a 4 or 5 page documentation, which I didn't have a chance to read it all. My question on the 48-hour to 24 to 48-hour rule to establish quorum, who is the person, who decides whether our absence is excused or not?
The way that this is currently written, and that is the
In our
items
changes, like
that-
who has the final say if we're excused or not?
I don't think it requires that you be excused.
That may be the House bill I'm thinking about.
It says, when there is a request to participate remotely, the requesting commissioner should submit the request to the chair, vice chair, county manager, or clerk, any of those individuals, as soon as the member is aware of the need, but to the extent possible, preferably within 48 hours, but not less than 12 hours before the official meeting, so that proper arrangements might be put in place. In our case, they're permanently installed in the room, I think, well, we've had a number of virtual participants. But it does not, there is not anything in here, and then it goes into what provisions you have to have. There's nothing in here that says you have to be granted permission, I don't think.
It may be in the House bill that I'm thinking of, so excuse me for that.
And I've not seen that bill, and I don't know who told you that we had voted on it. I think Chris said that. I don't know where.
Yeah, I had a
I
conversation.
mean, I've had conversations with them, but I have conversations with our General Assembly members on a number of topics.
Right, so actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because I wanted to go back and kind of get to the bottom of this.
Let's let Barbara have her.
Okay, that's fine. You get it.
And we may touch on that. So, we had a brief conversation. It was going to be in our March meeting. The next thing I know, there's a bill filed on March 22nd at your request. I talked to Representative Baker. I've talked to Senator Newton. I've talked to several other people at the legislature. They were informed at your request that the board wanted this bill. I didn't know about this bill until my phone started ringing and emails from people that I don't even know who they are. So how come we were not informed that we're now putting a bill forward? How come we didn't know about this?
I guess for the same reason that you haven't called me to ask a single question about this, since all the hubbub that I've heard over the last 2 or 3 days.
Well, I would have appreciated a phone call to say you were going to pass a House bill. The other problem I have with this is, we've passed you've sent a House bill up 453, 454 that we didn't have any discussion about.
Which one is that?
That's the ABC tax, that we're decreasing the percentage of the tax rate that the sheriff's department gets off this revenue from alcohol sales.
I don't know anything about what you're talking about.
Well, it was introduced at the same time.
Did we vote? I mean,
We never voted on
is
it.
it a local bill?
I believe it is. House Bill 454.
Well, we don't vote on any statutes that the General Assembly
Right, but this
votes
is a
on.
local-
They pass the statutes, and we,
Which I
and then
understand.
they tell us about them,
But this is a local bill that was introduced the very same day,
right?
and it's for Cabarrus County. And it's reducing our sheriff's tax from 15%, I believe, to 5%. It's immediately following this, and it's sponsored by the same,
What are they doing with the other 10%?
it comes to us. So we get 25, the city of Concord gets 75. But irregardless, those two were introduced without any knowledge to any of us. I didn't know that none of that was even proposed or going up to the state legislature to discuss or anything else like that. I was waiting to have discussion at our March meeting, which didn't happen. This gets brought to our attention via phone call, and now it's in April. And when we're in our April work session, I specifically asked for this to be on our general meeting because Commissioner Meismer was not in the meeting.
No, you asked to table it, I think.
No, I asked to put it on our regular meeting agenda for discussion because he was not here. I didn't say table it. I never said table it.
Well, then you should have made that in the form of a motion and let it be voted on.
You told me I didn't need to, and I could pull it off the consent at the time.
And what I said, I understood you to say, I want to table this, and I said, well, we've had since February the 25th to study the information. We've got 2 more weeks to study it before the regular meeting, which is accurate, and we're discussing it now.
We're discussing it now. However, we wouldn't be had it just stayed on the consent agenda.
Well,
So-
I mean, we've pulled quite a few things off the
Oh, yeah.
consent agenda
Yeah.
at different times.
But my
And will in the future, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah. My biggest concern is the way that this was handled. This was pushed to the House without our knowledge, probably because it had to be done before April 1st, is my suspect, because that's when our appropriations requests had to be turned in, which I still haven't seen the full list of requests that we made to the state legislature. I figured that would be in our April work session meeting or somewhere else. We haven't seen them. The only one I'm aware of is the Stonewall Jackson fence removal. So there's a lot of information that we're not getting that, unless I know it's out there, I can't call you and ask you about it, now can I? I didn't know that this was coming up to going to be a House bill. And when I talked to the representatives in Raleigh, they said that this was a compassion bill. This wasn't just a policy change. I've heard this from multiple sources at the State House and at the Senate. So what are we to
Well,
believe?
you should be compassionate. Commissioner Meismer has broke his neck tonight, and Commissioner Workman's broke his leg.
Right,
So-
but I'm saying the way that this is perceived at the State House and the Senate,
And Commissioner Chu's on his deathbed. Yeah.
right, and but this is how it was relayed back to me.
Right.
So, I'm just letting you know, this is this is not a good look when we don't know what's going on. We weren't aware because we were officially going to talk about this in March. And then I understood it got to be moved. But in the meantime, it's gone to the State House, unbeknownst to any of us.
Which is in no way impacted by what our rules say or don't say.
I didn't say it did.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying the way that this was handled is not a good look. The other concern I have with just a minute. That's on the House bill. So then I, also in my conversations regarding House Bill 453, I was informed that the provision to have a replacement, you could vote on your replacement if you resigned. I was informed that that was also to be included in House Bill 453, but you were told it was unconstitutional and therefore not included in it.
Okay, tell me again what 453, is that the one that deals with remote
Yes,
meetings?
yes, House Bill
Yeah.
453. I was told by multiple sources at the State House and several of our state senators that provision to vote for your replacement was to also, it was requested to have it in that House bill. And you were told it was unconstitutional, and therefore, that's obviously why it's not there.
Yeah, in conversation with our representatives to the General Assembly, I presented to them this same written piece of paper that was presented to you. And I said, these are items that were introduced at our retreat on February the 25th, and that's exactly how it was presented.
Okay. So in that document.
Now, I don't think it says anywhere in here anything about endorsements or votings, or as a matter of fact, the heading at the top says retreat, rules of procedure, discussion.
I believe it does say in there. If you hand it to me, I can find out where it is.
Give it back, because that's my only copy.
You discuss it on the very last page about,
Read us the sentence, sir.
I think that if a commissioner submits his or her resignation to be an effective date in the future, the resignating commissioner should be a part of the decision to name his or her replacement, and should be allowed to vote. So it was in there. So
Yes, in there, but I'm saying, where does it say that we voted on it?
that's what I was told at the state level. When I talked to the House, yeah, we never voted on it, is my point. So how did it get all the way?
And that's what I'm saying, this doesn't say that we voted on it.
No, it never.
Does this say we voted on it?
No, then how did it get all the way to the state house, is my question.
Well, I can tell you the same way, it's kind of like I was talking about those secrets we were going to keep for 2 months. That doesn't ever happen. I think that probably it's inaccurate information. The same kind of information that said that Commissioner Shue was on his deathbed Saturday while he was eating lunch at a Mexican restaurant. That's where those kinds of information come from. So no, I cannot answer that question for you.
So our state representatives just ran this without any conversation with you?
Oh, no, they had, I just told you, I gave them this piece of paper that outlines every one of these changes and said, in addition to it being printed on there, retreat rules of procedure discussion, I said to them, straight to their face, these are items that we discussed at our retreat about changes to our rules of procedure. I think I probably went on to say, these have not come up for a vote at our meeting yet. And I can't say for absolutely sure, but probably said, how do you think these interface with our current statutes? That sounds like probably the conversation that we would have had.
Well, that's not what I received from Representative Baker and
Right.
some other representatives. I was told specifically that you had requested those to be issued or added into a local bill by our state representatives.
I would not say that was, I don't remember that wording exactly, but I would not say that was untrue. And I would say that I could probably name off a half a dozen other ones that I probably also have requested.
Then why were we not told about this?
I was not requesting this on behalf of the board. I was informing them of the discussion that we had had and the issues that we were having. If there are quite a few statutes that are passed in Raleigh that have a very direct impact on us that are not discussed with us until after they are enacted.
Well,
I think that happens on a very regular basis.
well, that's not the message I received from Raleigh. I was told that you and Mike Downs requested that House bill be drafted.
Well,
I'm just telling you what,
I can tell you that Mike Downs didn't request it without any question at all.
I said to both of you. I mean, you were there together. I'm just saying, from my understanding, it was a meeting. that
We
you were
had
there in
a
person.
meeting with our entire delegation, along with staff was present. I don't remember exactly how many. We're not allowed by law to have more than 2 commissioners.
Correct.
at-
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Unless we announce it as a public meeting.
Right, I'm aware.
But we had each of our elected representatives to the delegation to the General Assembly that met together. And this, along with a number of other things that were presented to them, specifically, I think the legislative agenda for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, which I don't have in front of me right now, but you have received a copy at some point in time, those items. And then, in addition to that, I said, and these are items that we discussed at our retreat that we have not acted on. Yeah.
Well, that's not the
That
message.
is absolutely accurate.
Well, that's not the message that I received from Representative Baker or Senator Newton.
Yeah.
So there's obviously some disconnect between those, but I've spoken to Representative Baker at length multiple times, talked to Senator Newton as well, and Representative Crutchfield also brought it up at an event and echoed the same thing, that it was at your request to have Local Bill 453 drafted. I'm just letting you know that's where,
I'll own that.
I mean, I think
I'll
that's...
own that. There are 2 different things you're saying here. Number 1, you're saying at my request. Yes. Number 2, you're saying that I told them the board had voted on it. That is incorrect. I never did that.
That's what I was told from them. I'm not...
You were told incorrectly.
Okay, well, I'm just letting you know what was put out there. And then if you requested that House Bill, Local Bill, Local 453 was to be drafted, how come you didn't tell us?
I would just note, as Evan Lee, General Counsel for the county, 453 deals with the city of Concord, and it appears that it's a local bill coming out of Concord.
No. 453 is County Commission specific. 454 does discuss Concord, yes. And I have it on my computer if you'd like to see it.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of either of them in front of me. But
my question to you is, so you have these conversations up there. Okay, there's obviously some difference in opinion on what they heard you say or whatnot. How come you wouldn't let us know prior to our March meeting that that you were going to run these or request that these be run as local bills?
if we entered into that discussion, I would.
Well, we hadn't. So how come these were entered? These were filed on March 22nd.
Right. When was our work session date?
I don't remember. I don't have it off the top of my head. But it wasn't discussed, obviously, at our March meeting. Our next work session was April 3rd. You never even mentioned it in the April 3rd meeting.
What, that there was a potential bill out there? I still haven't seen the bill that you're talking about.
Well,
And I could probably pull it up here.
Yeah, which, by the way, everybody else seems to have found out, because I've gotten call after call after call from people I don't know, people that I do know. I've gotten email correspondence. As soon as this bill hit, I think it was on a Friday, I got multiple phone calls, and I didn't even know what they were talking about. I had to look it up. So that's where I think the transparency question is, how did it get from here to Raleigh without myself knowing?
Yeah, well,
Commissioner Warburton, did you know that this was going to Raleigh? Did you know anything about this, or did you get phone calls starting on that Friday?
I get plenty of phone calls, but I'm going to address that when you're done talking.
Did you ask, I just asked you a question, that's all I'm asking.
We talked about it at our board retreat. I'm going to play the 39-minute video about it, so I apologize to everybody in advance, but you want transparency, we're going to sit here for another 39 minutes and watch it, because I'm requesting that we watch the entire video, part 2, Lauren, the part 2, 39 minutes. And we clearly gave, it's kind of like our tax incentives. What do you think? I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I don't want to talk about it. Sits there like a bump on a log. Never gives a response.
No,
Ever.
at the retreat?
Ever. You don't ever give a response on anything.
No, that's not true.
So,
Because you appreciated the response I gave before. So my question to you, I just have one
I
question.
just answered it. Are you cross-examining me?
No.
I literally just answered you. I gave my thing at the board retreat, and no, I did not know it was being filed.
That's all I asked. I didn't ask for all that.
Because you're going on a tirade about transparency, but yet you visit fire departments and tell them one thing. So we get also, I'm glad we're having this conversation. You voted in 2021 on the incentive that you just turned down tonight, but.
Not sure that's right, but anyway, I'm going to go back and look
zero
at it.
explanation on anything. So if we're going to have transparency, let's have it. We're going to watch that 39-minute video. I post what I do every single month. Nobody else does it. I tell everybody exactly what I think. And we're going to watch the 39-minute video so that there's zero question left on what we talked about during that time. So that's, if we're going to talk transparency, let's do it. But there's also a very split board with people undermining things constantly.
On both sides.
You're correct.
On both sides, 100%.
Yep,
I do
you're
not
absolutely
disagree
correct.
with you.
So let's put it up there, get it out there, put it to a vote, and let the people go home at 10:30 tonight by the time we're done.
Well, we have a closed session too. I don't think they want to sit through a 39-minute video, but we all agree that there was. But I will say, we all agree that there was discussion. We did disagree there. Okay, none of us disagreed with the discussion that we had at the retreat, and I specifically remember, and at the end of it, let me read this over, because that document that you just showed me, and we all have it, and we were all there, you handed it to us during the discussion. So I didn't have time to read it all, go over it all in depth, and we all probably didn't. I don't think any of us would have had time to read 4 or 5 pages in its entirety. I'm just saying, that's fine. But my biggest concern is, how did it get from here to Raleigh without any of us knowing? That's my only concern.
I think I just told you. Hal.
Right. Well, it would be nice if you would have let us know that was the plan. You never even let us know.
And I think that probably at the retreat, after all 3 of these items were presented, the response was, I'm good with this one, which was the
1-hour rule.
The 1-hour rule. I'm okay with the remote participation one, but this other one, I think we're going to have to think on that one a little bit.
I also wanted to think on
And I recall
one
my
before.
response to that was, that is not a problem. You've got all this information. I can provide you with copies of the PowerPoint as well if you would like, and we will not take this up until a later time. I don't remember specifying a March work session, but I could have. I probably said we'll take this up in March or April. It's not an urgent matter.
Yeah, so I think it was on our March, and then we got an email.
But if Kenny's going to insist on us watching the video, we can see what I said on the video.
I was supposed to say, why don't we get started? If we have to sit through this 30-minute video, then we can have more discussion after. But before we do that, I have a question on page 2 in the proposed changes. It says participation by a board member by electronic means in any properly noticed meeting. Participation shall be by telephone or video conference as determined by the clerk. So I thought that telephone was not an option, but it says that here.
I'm not okay via telephone. I'm okay via teleconference, but I'm not okay via just a telephone.
Just had a whole discussion about that with Mecklenburg County, and it was
Right.
said that telephone was not an option, but the way it reads here, telephone can be an option. So
That can be removed, if you'd like.
Yeah.
I wanted to say one thing just real quick before we take that 39 minutes for Kenny. Folks, I think we're off track. We don't vote on House bills. We don't vote on Senate bills. We're voting on rules of procedure for Cabarrus County. We're not voting on anything up at the legislature in Raleigh. And not only that, you're talking about the resignation or retirement of a sitting commissioner. Well, not only, we are bound to vote. We are required to vote. And if you give a resignation or a retirement effective a certain date, well, the day you give that resignation, it might be 30 days before you leave office. Are you not a commissioner no more? Do you pick and choose what you vote for? No, you stick right there to the line until the effective date of your retirement or your resignation. And any and all things that come before the board, you can vote for that because you're still an active sitting commissioner. And not only do you vote, you're required to vote. and absence, not saying anything. I've been on boards before where they felt like that they didn't say yes or no, they didn't say anything. Well, in the case like that, if you don't say anything, that's considered an affirmative, yes.
Looking for some this would also help staff be a little bit more focused in going forward with what the board wanted. And then it would also give us the flexibility to create committees if we felt like it. For example, we might say, you know, we could spend 5 hours at a work session talking about creating this fire commission. So instead, let's have 2 commissioners to go off and recruit some citizens or some fire chiefs and sit down and talk about this and then bring a report back to the board. So we have that flexibility now, but we don't have it actually addressed in our rules of procedure. That kind of gives you a breakdown. And I think all this is in your book as well. Same kind of thing, uses time more effectively, affirms that we're aligning staff capacity with the board's priorities. That kind of gives you a workflow as to how it would work. And so basically, I would recommend that we include this in our rules of procedure. And that's not something that we would do here. Based on our conversation here today, then we can give Lauren some direction. If we have a consensus that we think we would like to do this, then she can adjust our rules of procedure and revise it and include that in there. And then we can have a discussion at one of our work sessions and then either put it on our consent agenda for approval, or we could discuss it in a regular meeting, whatever the board would want to do. And that's kind of the next steps on it. So, anybody have feedback? Yes, sir.
I don't necessarily have a problem with this. I'm curious, has there been a sort of an issue with this in the past?
I don't think there's been a serious issue. They're probably making it maybe a little bit, a time or two. Basically, it appealed to me as a preventive kind of thing. When I had the conversation with the Wayne County Commissioner and she was boasting about their policy and how well it worked, I said, well, that sounds like that is sensible. You know, would you mind sending that to me? And so that's kind of how that conversation began.
So now, I know that I haven't initiated any sort of proposal or anything like that.
I can't think of one.
Right, yeah, so I don't think, we run into that issue before, but what about information requests? I mean, that doesn't take an hour or so.
Information requests, I don't think would fall in that category because it would be something pretty extreme if it took more than an hour of staff time. I think county manager's policy has been, ever since I've been on the board, if any one of us asks a question, then he sends the answer out to everybody.
Now,
If
I do have a proposal, then do I bring that up at the public work session meeting or send that to the manager and then
I think a conversation with the manager up front, say, hey, and then he could kind of give a feel for, this is probably going to take, a day of somebody's time or something. Then he could offer some feedback as to whether or not this was
to go on to.
Yeah. So I would say 99% of the time it would not.
Yeah. I can't think of any.
So that's a perfect example for this question. So the sheriff's department and I working on a non-solicitation in the unincorporated areas. And there were several complaints from Harrisburg and some other unincorporated areas about, people knocking on the door, trying, It's becoming a little bit scarce to some of those folks. I've talked to Dan Shaw and James Bailey, they're in agreement, let's just not do it, you have to register and all this other married. So, I said, okay, fine, so James literally just sent me his research, which I have sent off to Evan today.
Right.
So, would I have to wait to bring a proposal of that? Would I have, if we implement this, would I need to wait for a work session to say, this is what I want to do?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I would say probably at the next work session.
I think we're gonna have to request an agenda, is that right?
No, well,
That's what.
yeah, to do it right, but and that's something else that we can talk about in the rule of procedures. Some other boards, school boards, some of the others have a super formalized procedure as to how they put things on agenda. Going back to Wake County again, they do also, but they have a much larger county and they have a 9-member board. We have always been very flexible. It's pretty much to put something on the agenda for the work session just requires a call to the clerk or the county manager. Am I correct in that? Typically, as I've been chair, those requests don't come before me unless it's something out of the ordinary.
Well, one of those things that is different now than it was then, we're dealing with a whole lot more issues now than we ever had.
Right.
And so it just, when you add more and more, it just sounds complicated. So, I don't know how to get around that. We got a 5-member board versus 7 or 9, and we can only do so much. There's only so much we can do, but
Right.
I know when I was on the school board, when I was chairman of the school board, I recommended to run everything through the chairman. And then the chairman would make the decision to disseminate it to the superintendent or to the county manager. But if you want to send it through Mike to start with, that's certainly all right.
That's the way we do it traditionally.
Yeah, I think it's been both ways. I don't know, I have to get some more on as well, but pretty much if somebody wants something on the agenda, then at least the work session agenda, whether it makes the regular meeting, that's totally up to you as a board, so.
Yeah, because once it gets on the work session agenda, then the entire board has the opportunity to take it forward or do whatever they want. But back to your specific question, if that's already in place, I don't think that's an issue. But something like that would come up at the work session, that way you get the whole board informed rather than, you might be off working on solicitation and I might, and I don't know. That could be the misconception. And then I might be off working on the exact opposite thing. The whole solicitation thing, I don't understand that. If you ever read Next Door, which I try not to do, people will come on there and say, a strange person that I did not know came up and knocked on my door today, and I called the police. I'm thinking, seriously? You called the police because somebody knocked on your door?
Yeah. I think I would feel more comfortable if we ran it to the county manager instead of the board chair.
Yeah, which is what we're doing.
Because we have to vote on that, so I think he needs to put it out so that we can vote on it and move forward.
As long as this was on.
Yeah.
One way or the other. But, okay, so going forward, if I were to bring a non-solicitation ordinance, if this was going on, if we implement this policy, I would go that route in the uniform section.
Right.
And
if staff needed to do something, then if you were requesting staff to do some research, then if it was a simple, short thing, they just go ahead and do it. If it was something more involved, then it would come before the board, and it would be more of an initiative that the full board has support.
That allows that. Yeah. Okay, well, our new attorney is working on, he's working on condensing the language that James and Sherry have signed. Just give us something to look at. I don't know if it'll be done in time for our work session, but just know that that's out there.
Yeah.
So with the alcohol one that we did, that would, because it took Richard some time to research that, so that would have, going forward, if it's something like that, that would have to, yeah.
That would fall in this policy, yeah, I would say so. And I mean, for example, if I had picked up the phone and I had called Mike and said, hey, I want to do so-and-so, what is that going to require? And if he said, well, it's going to take Rich 3 or 4 hours, which, by the way, happens to be one of those employees that we pay by the hour for what they do, so that makes an impact as well. So to have a full board sign off on that, I think would be good.
Okay.
So everybody okay with that one? Okay, Laura, we just got an okay on that one.
Okay, we were just having a conversation, just thinking structurally on the agenda, how I can make that look appropriate for these commissioner requests, project, how should I? I would put it under as a county manager, bring like under that category.
Yeah, I think whatever we work out is going to be okay with us, probably, as long as we get the job done. But yeah, looking at the rules of procedure, I know the code of ethics is signed and dated whenever that was put into place. I don't think the rules of procedure were.
Right.
And maybe we need to have a date and a version on there, because I know there was a little bit of question about when it was, you said that you had updated some things based on something recently. Anyway.
Updated when I got here in 19, and then Rich and I reviewed it for the remote participation policy, and because I had updated it in 19, right before 2020,
Right.
we had the most up-to-date options to do what we need.
Yeah, so just maybe that's annotated on there, revised so-and-so date, so that we know.
Sure.
Which what we're talking about is a revision to it. Yeah, and so that takes us to the second item on my sheet, which was the remote meeting capability. And and you can certainly read all that. All of the wording that I've got on here is taken directly from what Mecklenburg County approved about 2 weeks ago, which gives a commissioner, if somebody is out of town and can't get back into town, is out due to illness, then that gives them the ability to participate in the meeting remotely. There is some question about, there are differing opinions at the school government about that. There are some people that say, yes, that's fine. There are some people that say, no, that could be challenged, a vote that you take. And so we have met with our delegation of the General Assembly, and I have asked them to clarify that statute for us, either through a local bill that particularly addresses Cabarrus County, which I think is what they said that they would prefer to do when we talk with them. And if that's not true, then it would be a statewide issue. But this specifically says outside of an emergency. Because during the pandemic, when there was an emergency order in place, it was legal to do that. But when the emergency order ended, then it became questionable. The law, I think, allowed for remote participation, but it did not allow for remote voting specifically. And so they are supposed to be working on that on our behalf. What we voted it remotely for. I mean, we all did. Yeah, that was during the emergency order.
Going forward, basically we can, I mean, if there's a situation that comes up.
If there's
the same thing, we can.
Yeah, well, but now it's only clear if there's an emergency order in place when you go.
Okay, so this is saying that, I'm sorry, so you're saying this proposed, adding this in there
is only for the state of emergency?
No, this is outside of the state.
Okay, that's why I thought I read it. So
Yeah,
basically,
it's to cover us if I'm sick and I can't be there, then it allows me to participate by teams.
Right.
And there are provisions in there that any method chosen must allow for the participating commissioner to hear what is said by other commissioners, hear what is said by individuals addressing the board, and to be heard by other members of the board when speaking. Well, obviously, we have done that and done it quite well, and Todd volunteered to stay and talk about that. I told him I didn't think it was necessary.
yeah,
But 5 years ago, I certainly would not have thought we could do that. But as we all learned during the pandemic, with all the technology that we have, plus in our meeting chambers, the screens that have been added at the front, the cameras and the microphones, they do it very well. So Mecklenburg County has already put this in place, but there's still a little bit of a question on that. So we talked about, as I said, talked about that with the legislative delegation, and they are working on that for us. So I would propose that we do the same thing that Mecklenburg County has done and put it in. Now, they didn't put theirs in their rules of procedure. Theirs was a proclamation or a resolution. They passed a resolution outlining it. So we could do that either way. And I don't know.
But check the bridges, I think the resolution may be.
I think, yeah, whatever legal counsel recommends, we could go in the direction.
Just to point out, in that situation, it does not allow you to make a quorum.
Right.
For a virtual meeting. So I think that's important to say, that it still allows, you have to have a quorum present, but it will allow you to be a part of the meeting and count your votes if necessary. But
Exactly, and I like that part about it, because I don't think we should be meeting remotely unless it is a necessary situation.
My other question is why could we not, let's just say I was in an automobile accident, but I wasn't, and I couldn't be there. Now I can't participate in closed session. Why is that?
Because if it's being broadcast out.
Well, I mean, yeah, obviously, if I was at home or something laid out.
That's what that means. And you would be, that's what this is for, if you can't physically be present. That means you would be participating by Zoom or by Teams.
Right.
Then when we go into closed session, that would be broadcasting that out. It's not a secure.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and we would have no way, no one else was in the room with you. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So is everybody okay?
I'm fine.
With that, and we'll report back when we get some information back from Jill. Now, Charlotte Mecklenburg is going ahead with this, saying this is what we're going to do, and let the ships fall where they may. It would be my prayer that it never comes into play.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, but if it does, we're prepared for it. Same thing with the next item on the list, and this regards the resignation of the commissioner.
Yeah, after that, and I get that can't participate in closed session. Can the chair provide us, or the county manager provide us with some update as to, depending on what it was?
On the closed session?
Yeah, just so we're aware, if we're not there, just little mini notes or some meeting or something, or even a phone call, just say it's what we discussed, just so we know.
Yeah.
If we could add that in somewhere that, whatever, before the next meeting.
If Laura's going to make a note to run that by.
Just to bring it up to date.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're doing that job.
Then the next one is regarding the resignation of the commissioner. Another one that we hope never comes into play, but it has happened twice since I've been on the board. The first one was Jay White, and then the second one was Grace Minor. And so that is, and I put a copy of the statute in there that states how we can do it. the one piece about that, and I think I included some verbiage underneath, but if a commissioner, for example, when Grace Mine resigned from the board, I was chair at the time, she handed me a written resignation and said, I intend to resign from the board and my resignation date will be effective December 31st, if I remember correctly. But it was like a month ahead. So what we did in that case was we did not address that until after the first of the year. And holiday season and all that kind of stuff. But the question that came up was, okay, if somebody is resigning from the board, let's say I'm moving to Georgia, and so I'm moving to Wayne County, or whatever the case may be, and I have to resign from the board, I could submit my resignation at any point in time. It could be 60 days in advance. And I'd say, effective in 60 days, I will be resigning from the board because I'm moving out of the county. It seems to me, now we have a 5-member board, so we are always subject. When we have a member resign, then we become a 4-member board. And so we are subject to gridlock. If 2 members have one person they want, the other 2 members have another person that they want, then we don't have any way to break a tie. And so if we were to be in that situation, then the statute says that you shall name a replacement within 60 days. If you do not, then the clerk of Superior Court shall name a replacement. And so if we were in that 2-2 situation, then we would have 60 days that we would not be able to pass anything that was a 2-2 decision. Now, obviously, every decision is not going to be that way. But so my proposal is that the resigning member would have an opportunity to participate in the selection process and would have one vote for their successor. And so that at the effective date of their resignation, we would have somebody in line, in place, ready to go. We could continue on operating business. Now, in the event of the death of a member, none of this would apply, because obviously they would not be present. And so that also has some statute questions in it, because the statute says if a vacancy occurs. And so that raises the question, does that mean the vacancy does not occur until the effective date of the resignation? Or does the vacancy occur when the person gives notice of their resignation? The wording that I've got in the first part of that, right before the statute, is all discussions from the School of Government. That when they're talking about if Kenny were to get mad right now, and let's say we were in the regular meeting, and he stood up and said, I resign from this board immediately. Well, the board would accept his resignation. He would storm out of the room, and he could not change his mind. He could not come back and say, oh, I've been thinking about it. That wasn't a smart thing to do. Then that would not be. But if he said, I resign from this board effective 30 days from now, he could come back during that time and say he's changed his mind. Now, that's according to the information from the School of Government. They've been down a lot of different avenues and so forth. So I propose that we include in our rules of procedure allowing the resigning member to participate, and then pursue the statute change to make sure that,
That's in this portion.
yeah.
So you're saying,
Well, yeah, and the nomination and ballot method too, that's another school of government recommendation that kind of gives you the procedure so that, when we did it before, it was kind of, see, the first time, we were under the other statute and the party made the replacement. And then the second time, we were under this statute and the board made the replacement.
So you're wanting, this is your proposal to change that.
I didn't say that real carefully, but it sounded sensible.
I just want to make sure.
To me, I was just looking for some written out methodology as to how we would proceed. And that is what the school of government recommended.
I want to think about that.
Yeah.
I did too, because we just did, like when Lyndon Johnson passed away, the party is appointed or recommended.
Yeah, that's a different statute.
Baker.
Yeah.
I just want to double check. I mean, let me think on that one, just double check, and I want to make sure.
There are statutes that dictate that.
Yeah, that goes to the party, that's why I just want to double check.
And that's the way it is with House members and another votes. County commissioners, there's about 50% of the counties that are under this statute and 50% of the counties are under the other statute.
Yeah, and that's, I just want to make sure.
Okay.
Let me do my homework.
So do you want to bring that back at our next work session?
Yeah.
With, that's good, yeah. And Lauren can be working on these other items, in the meantime. And then we'll go from there. That's all I've got. Does anybody else have? And the code of ethics, I didn't see anything in there that, excellent.
But one of the things that you left out, I think, Steve, was that, the remaining board members would select a fill-in of the same party.
Yeah. That's in the statute.
It's in the statute.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that makes sense to me is all of us are elected. And so if one of us is resigning, we're giving up the responsibility that we were elected to serve. So I think that it's appropriate.
But if heaven forbid, well, actually, I got a car accident last night, but, the lady just about hit me. I don't think it would have killed me, but so a situation like that, and dead,
It is just goes by the statute, yeah, because there would be no,
in heaven forbid.
Right.
We have to do it, you know?
yeah.
Because I'm happy to have it.
That's right.
Anyone.
Exactly right. And if we were a 7-member board or a 9-member board, that would not be as an issue. Right. So, I mean, it could, not as likely. Okay, very good. Thank you all. Mr. County Manager?
So I'd like to apologize for being 10 o'clock and us all still being here. But we had multiple people come up and speak about transparency tonight. I don't know how else I can do it any better. We talked about it at the retreat. It's been on the consent agenda. You saw it, you heard it. I mean, if you want transparency, there it is. I don't know how to make it any better than that. I know we have some other things after this, but you pulled it, so I'd like to give them their vote that they came for. And then that way, we can at least get them home at a decent time.
I'll just say, that video is completely inaudible, and sorry you had to sit through that. But I think that it proves the point. I timed the replacement process, we talked for 8 minutes. The remote meeting, we talked for 6 minutes, and 95% of that was Chairman Morris talking. So there wasn't a discussion, and it was referenced several times that we'd come back with more information. Chairman Morris said, they would get clarity on the statute. There would be, they would report back to us. There was mention of next work session several times, so that video proved my point. And somehow, I know we don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but what I'm going to say is somehow it comes from this to a bill being introduced in the state legislature, and Chairman Morris and County Manager Downs did not communicate that with anybody. And I feel like whenever there is a local bill introduced that affects Cabarrus County, we should have the courtesy of being informed. And I know, Chairman Morris, you mentioned that Commissioner Strain hadn't called you and asked you about it. You're the chair, and it's your obligation to communicate with your board members. So the transparency issue comes down to this going to the state legislature whenever we were told on that video that we would get more information, we didn't get it. So that's the transparency problem.
Well, I'm reluctant to say, but I think we should watch the video again, because what I saw, it clearly stated on the video. We have mentioned this to our delegation to the General Assembly. We have asked them to clarify this in a statute. It may be a local bill, or it could be one that impacted the entire state. That will be up to them. That's what I heard on the video.
Well,
Did you hear that, Barbara?
Yeah, I heard the
We heard that, but
conversation.
you also, in the very next breath or in the next sentence, said, we'll wait for guidance back from we're waiting for guidance. So,
Yeah.
to me, we're waiting to hear back what
Okay.
they determine.
I
Is
don't
it a
wanna beat that
statute, is it a
horse.
local bill, what is it?
I'm
Okay.
gonna go ahead and make a motion. I'm gonna move that we do not accept these changes in the rules of procedure.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there additional discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed, please say no.
No.
So I think I saw two yeses. I couldn't hear you, Barbara.
I said no.
You,
Wait,
Wait,
what
no,
did you asking
no.
me?
no, his motion he just made.
My motion was to not accept these change procedures.
Okay, yeah.
And so you said yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 2 yeses
Sorry.
and 3 noes. Okay. And so the floor is open if someone else would like to make another motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion that we adopt the rules of procedures as amended.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
And so the way it's written is still allowing for a phone conference in. That's still in the language. So,
Would you like to request an amendment
well,
to
I'm
the
not going to vote
motion?
for it anyway, so
Well, you can still request an amendment.
somebody else can have the pleasure of doing that.
I'd like to ask Commissioner Shu to consider the amendment to not allow simply telephone. I think we should have to be able to see you and hear you. So I'd ask that you would consider that.
I can do that, Commissioner Wortman. I would make the motion to approve the rules of procedures as amended, with the exception to take the phone part out as far as being able to attend meetings remotely.
Would you be agreeable to adding on to that, subject to the review and revision by the county attorney, so he could word that correctly, to get the phone out and make sure it just is two-way, whatever the proper term would be, to make sure it's Zoom or Teams? Is that agreeable with you? Is that agreeable with you, Kenny? You were the second on that. Okay. You got the motion? Okay. All right, additional discussion. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. Okay, that motion passes 3-2. Okay, we move now to updates from commission members who serve as liaisons to municipalities or on various boards or committees. Does anyone have anything?
Active Living in Parks, wanted to pass on Vietnam Veterans Park is having 56 ash trees removed due to the emerald ash borer insect. April 27th At 6:30 is the Senior Games Cheerleader Showcase and Silver Art Follies, Laureate Center in Kannapolis. Tickets are $5 at the door. And May 4th at 10 a.m., the Trails and Tales at Rob Wallace Park, and that event is free.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other reports?
Just real briefly, on the Water and Sewer Authority of Cabarrus County, the project out there for the expansion is moving along, and everything is, you wouldn't believe what's going on out there. I'll tell you one thing, it's amazing, but hopefully it's on track, and we're moving forward to meet the needs of the citizens.
Great, thank you. Any other reports? Okay, we will move then to general comments from board members. I will start off on that one. I apologize for my lack of mathematical ability, but after I said that, someone sent me a text message. The tax revenue from the Eli Lilly project through 2031, which is their incentive period, will net to the county, and this is without any of the increases they've done, $6,655,000. So that's what we will actually receive in tax revenue.
Over a 10-year period
That is correct. Yeah.
for a $2 billion project. So $2 billion, we're going to only collect $6 million
We're going to
for
collect
10 years.
$6 million, and then on the 11th year, we will collect 100% of the valuation on $2 billion.
So $6 million over 10 years is less than $1 million a year on all that property. They're going to be paying property
Yeah,
tax.
yeah, and so I would compare that to what we've been collecting on that piece of property for the last, when Philip Morris closed, to 2003, I think, something like
And
that.
so who just gave you that information that you,
Somebody sent me a copy
the
of
note that was passed?
No, thank you for mentioning that. The
Okay.
note that was passed was in regards to House Bill 454, which you referenced, Barbara, which was regarding to ABC revenue, and that was an administrative correction to the Concord, City of Concord ABC profit distribution. The bill matches language to do what the ABC Board has been doing since its inception, with no impact on county revenue. And I do remember that now. But that Concord had been following that distribution formula always, and they just did this correction to match, for the bill to match what they were already doing. So, yeah, so that's what that one was.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
Thank you to all the people that's in the audience. I know it's been a long meeting, and whether you're here for one side or the other, I really appreciate you being here, just being involved, because it's not easy. This has been a long meeting, but this is the process. This is what we were elected to do. We're going to agree, disagree. We're going to, debate each other, but that's the way it is. And so thank you for the citizens for watching us on television or being patient and sitting in the audience this entire time. So thank you.
Okay, any additional comments? If not, we do have need of a closed session. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to go into closed session as authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318, 11A3. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. We are now in closed session. Thank you.